Chapter 755. Frenzied Massacre. Break! 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 Lu Hantian roared. Countless blood-red spear shadows spread out with him as the epicenter. Then, they exploded continuously. The terrifying power spread throughout the chaotic tripartite array. Rumble. The chaotic tripartite array trembled violently. Then, it erupted with an even more terrifying white light. Then, it remained motionless like a boulder. Ha! Lu Hantian, although you're a heavenly venerate expert and stronger than the three of us, under the amplification of the chaotic tripartite array, our strength has skyrocketed. We're comparable to a heavenly venerate expert. It won't be easy for you to break the chaotic tripartite array. Outside the array, Grant Haohai's face was filled with delight. He stared at Lu Hantian, who was inside the array, and sneered. Old Grant, if anything happens to Zhuowen, I won't let you off. Within the array, Lu Hantian stood silently, no longer attacking. He had seen the might of the Chao family's chaotic tripartite array. Moreover, Grant Haohai, Chao Ji, and Feng Tian, who were presiding over the chaotic tripartite array, were all golden venerate experts. The three of them could unleash the full power of the chaotic tripartite array. Even if Lu Hantian was trapped inside, it wouldn't be easy for him to escape in a short time. Grant Haohai's face twitched, but he said coldly, "Humph. Although you're very strong and I might not be your opponent, it won't be easy for you, Lu Hantian, to kill me." After speaking, Grant Haohai no longer paid attention to Lu Hantian. Instead, he, Chao Ji, and Feng Tian quietly presided over the chaotic tripartite array. They didn't dare to be careless. If Lu Hantian escaped, their assassination attempt would be in vain. Swoosh! 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 Figures constantly rushed over from all directions of the imperial capital. In this rainy night, they were like demons and monsters, densely packed together. These figures were basically attracted by the battle between Lu Hantian and Grant Haohai. Aren't those three the Feng family's patriarch Feng Tian, Chao family's patriarch Chao Ji, and Grand family's patriarch Grand Lan Haohai? The three of them seem to be using the chaos tripartite array. There's someone inside the chaotic tripartite formation. That person seems to be Lu Hantian from Muqin County. This Lu Hantian is so terrifying. He actually needed the three family heads to work together and rely on the chaotic tripartite formation to suppress him. Look over there. There are so many ultimate ninth will emperor realm martial artists. They seem to be surrounding someone. Although most people's gazes were attracted by the battle between Grand Haohai and the other two, some people's gazes quickly landed on the densely packed figures in the courtyard. Then, to their astonishment, they discovered that there were more than 30 of these figures, and all of them had surging auras. They coldly stared at Lu Nantian and said, "Lu Nantian, it's not worth offending our three great clans for such an insignificant brat. I advise you to mind your own business. Two old fogies. Zhuowen is the genius of my Muqin County. Asking me to mind my own business is truly laughable." Lu Nantian's eyes were cold. He didn't waste any more words. He took a step forward and rushed towards the two old men. A terrifying aura burst out from Lu Nantian's body like a monstrous tsunami and spread out. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Then don't blame the two of us for being impolite. Old Lu and Old Chen's faces turned solemn. They coldly snorted and similarly terrifying auras burst out. Instantly, the three of them collided and a terrifying force exploded in the air like a hurricane. Lu Nantian was an intermediate stage cultivator in the Xuanzuan realm. He was stronger than Old Lu and Old Chen. Unfortunately, Old Lu and Old Chen cooperated well and were evenly matched with Lu Nantian. In the courtyard, Zhuowen, who was within the greater infinite sword array, naturally saw everything that happened in the sky. He also saw Chao Ji, Feng Tian, and Grand Haohai, who were using the chaotic tripartite array. Good, good, good. Chao family, Feng family, and Grand Family, you guys are really good. You actually chose this time to assassinate me. Zhuowen's gaze turned even colder. The Chao family and Feng family had a death feud with him. Zhuowen was not surprised that they would seek revenge on him. However, the Grand Family had interfered between the two families. This made Zhuowen feel as if a basin of cold water had been poured over his heart. In any case, the Grand Family and Zhuo family had been friends for generations. Moreover, he, Zhuowen, had never killed a single member of the Grand Family. Instead, it was the Grand Lily who had been targeting him in the Peach Blossom origin map. They had even tried to kill him at all costs. Speaking of which, he, Zhuowen, did not owe the Grand Family anything. He did not even have any deep hatred. But now, Grand Haohai had joined forces with the Chao and Feng families to completely eliminate him. How could this not make Zhuowen's heart turn cold? Grand Haohai, my father's good brother. Hee, how ironic. Zhuowen laughed. His laughter was somewhat savage and even crazy. His voice was hoarse and cold. Everything that Grand Haohai had done had completely enraged Zhuowen. Since you want to kill me, Zhuowen, then I, Zhuowen, will let you know what kind of price you have to pay to kill me. As he spoke, Zhuowen immediately formed a seal with both hands. The mental strength in his Naiwen palace poured out and adhered to the surface of the Infinity Sword formation. Infinity Sword formation, Yin-Yang form. With a low roar, a yin-yang pattern suddenly appeared above the Infinity Sword formation. This yin-yang pattern rotated at high speed, causing the Infinity Sword formation to split into yin and yang. One was black and the other was white, forming the yin-yang sword formation. Puchi. As soon as the yin-yang sword formation appeared, the two warriors closest to it were immediately covered and completely entangled. Without even a groan, they turned into a ball of blood. Kill! Zhuowen flipped his right hand and a 3-meter-long bone spear appeared in his palm. At the same time, 3 pairs of huge lightning wings grew out of Zhuowen's back. With a stomp of his foot, he turned into a lightning bolt and disappeared. Seeing that their attacks had missed, the gazes of the 3 people narrowed as astonishment appeared on their faces. The 3 of them glanced at each other. Just as they were about to search for Zhuowen's figure, a sinister voice resounded in their ears. Are you looking for me? As soon as the words came out, the 3 of them narrowed their eyes and suddenly turned their heads. They immediately saw Zhuowen with lightning wings on his back, appearing behind them as if he had teleported. A cold light flashed out. The bone spear in Zhuowen's hand was swung out and swept towards the 3's necks. Block it! The 3 of them had cold gazes as they raised the weapons in their hands in an attempt to block Zhuowen's spear. Can you block it? Zhuowen's indifferent voice rang out once again. Subsequently, a terrifying spear intent erupted around the bone spear as its speed soared to the extreme. Before the 3 of them could react, Zhuowen had already brushed past them. Drip! A stream of blood trickled down from the tip of the bone spear and gathered on the ground to form a blood stream. Plop! The 3 warriors slowly turned their heads and stared at the figure standing silently behind them. Then, each of them clutched their necks and fell to the ground, completely losing all signs of life. A terrifying wound had appeared on their necks. The massacre is not over yet. After killing the 3 of them in an instant, Zhuowen's gaze fell on the 20-plus assassins above the yin-yang sword array. The chilling intent at the corner of his mouth became even more intense. With a stomp of his foot, lightning streaked across the void. Zhuowen was like a snake in the void as he swept past the 20-plus figures at an extremely fast speed. Every time he brushed past these cultivators, Zhuowen's bone spear was as fast as lightning, shuttling through the cultivators' vital points and causing blood to splatter. Chapter 756. Explode. 3 heads and 6 arms plop. In an instant, nearly a third of the 30 Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators had been killed by Zhuowen. Their corpses fell like raindrops. As for Zhuowen, he didn't hold back at all. As he killed these people, the great blood-sucking technique in his body suddenly circulated, absorbing all the blood essence of these cultivators into his body. The blood-sucking technique could absorb a cultivator's essence blood. This essence blood contained a vast amount of energy. Not only could it help Zhuowen heal, but it could also help him increase his cultivation. However, this kind of essence blood had a great drawback. There were many impurities in it, and it also contained side effects such as resentment. If it weren't for the help of the blood demons suppressed in the green coffin, Zhuowen wouldn't have used the blood-sucking technique so easily. However, he had no qualms about using it now. After all, the blood demon could help him filter out the impurities in the essence blood. Actually, what Zhuowen feared the most were the 6 Xuanzun realm elders floating silently at the top of the courtyard. Although 2 of the elders had been pinned down by Lu Nantian, there were still 4 Xuanzun realm elders. What Zhuowen needed now was strength. He needed to increase his strength as soon as possible to deal with these 4 mystique venerable rank martial artists. That was why Zhuowen had recklessly used a secret technique like the blood-sucking technique, which had such a huge side effect. Whoosh! 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 As Zhuowen continued to absorb the essence blood, the aura in his body grew stronger and stronger. With a stomp of his foot, he became fiercer and fiercer as he fought. With a wave of his hand, countless spear intents erupted, reaping the lives of several cultivators. In an instant, another 10 cultivators had lost their lives to Zhuowen's bone spear. Countless drops of blood fell from the sky along with the surrounding rainy night. It was an eerie night. What a terrifying fellow. More than 30 Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators surrounded him, but this Zhuowen broke through their encirclement and killed more than 20 of them. Looking at the 20 over miserable corpses in the courtyard, the hearts of many surrounding cultivators trembled. These were more than 20 Ultimate 9th Will Emperor Realm cultivators. Even in the 5 great clans, they were considered high-ranking members. Now, they had been slaughtered like dogs in Zhuowen's hands. This little bastard, how did he suddenly erupt with such terrifying battle strength? In the sky above the courtyard, Old Fu, and the other 3, who were originally unconcerned, also noticed the numerous Ultimate 9 Will Emperor Realm assassins being massacred below. Their pupils involuntarily shrank. This brat has grasped the spear intent. No wonder he can erupt with such terrifying combat strength. We can't let him continue his massacre. Old Gu, you go and kill this brat. Elder Fu furrowed his brows and ordered a sloppily dressed purple-robed old man behind him. Elder Gu nodded and flew toward Zhuowen. At this moment, Zhuowen was in the middle of a killing spree when he suddenly felt a sharp sound of something breaking through the air behind him. Zhang Xian's sharp senses told him that one of the 4 Grand Elders had already made a move. Thus, Zhang Xian leaped into the air and transformed into a streak of lightning, dodging Elder Gu's attack behind him. Rumble. The ancient and emaciated palm suddenly slapped the empty space where Zhuowen was, but it actually missed, causing him to instantly frown. What a cunning brat! But do you think you can escape from me like this? Elder Gu's lips curled up as he leaped toward Zhuowen again. His speed was even faster than before, and he arrived in front of Zhuowen in an instant. What a fast speed! Looking at Elder Gu, who was close at hand, Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He waved the bone spear in his hand, and a surging spear intent erupted, forming a ring-shaped blue spear shadow domain around him. You're so young, but you're already able to comprehend spear intent. Your talent is indeed terrifying. Unfortunately, a genius like you will die here tonight. Old Gu let out a cold snort. His shriveled hand was ruthlessly pressed downwards. An invisible pressure came crushing downwards like a ferocious beast and heavily smashed against the blue spear shadow domain. Crack! Under Zhuowen's shocked gaze, the blue spear shadow domain shattered like fragile glass, and Elder Gu's palm slammed into Zhuowen's chest. Swoosh! Zhuowen fell like a withered leaf, crashing into the courtyard and forming a huge crater. No one knew if he was dead or alive. Zhuowen is dead for sure. He's dead for sure after taking a full blow from a Xuanzuan realm cultivator. It's a pity that such a genius has offended 3 of the 5 great families of the imperial city. It's quite sad that he's met such an end. When Zhuowen was blasted into the courtyard by Elder Gu's palm, sighs could be heard from the surroundings. After all, the gap between the ultimate emperor realm and the Xuanzuan realm was too great. No matter how talented Zhuowen was, what was the use of being invincible among his peers after mastering spear intent? In front of the Xuanzuan realm, which was a level higher than him, he was as weak as an ant. That kid shouldn't be dead yet, but he shouldn't be far from it. The 10 of you go down and finish off that kid, and take his spirit ring. Elder Gu stood quietly in the air above the courtyard with his hands behind his back as he gave orders to the remaining 10 cultivators around him. Of the 30 or so Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators, only 10 were left after Zhuowen killed them. It could be said that they had suffered a great loss this time. Yes. The 10 cultivators cupped their hands, and then their faces were filled with hatred. Among the 20 or so people Zhuowen had killed, many of them were good friends. Now, because of Zhuowen, they were all dead. The 10 of them wanted nothing more than to skin Zhuowen alive. Whoosh! 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 The 10 of them instantly turned into 10 streaks of light and shot toward the crater below the courtyard where Zhuowen had fallen. The weapons in their hands emitted a frightening cold light. When the 10 of them approached the crater, a golden light suddenly shot up into the sky from the crater. Then, 6 blue spear shadows shot out from the golden light. Of the 10 cultivators who had rushed over, the fastest 6 instantly exploded into clouds of blood mist under the 6 spear shadows. A golden figure suddenly shot out like a god or a demon. The 6 clouds of blood mist turned into streams of blood essence energy that flowed back into the golden figure. Is the Xuanzuan realm really that great? Stepping on the ground, the golden light slowly receded, revealing a tall and muscular figure. When the surrounding people saw this figure, they all sucked in a breath of cold air because this figure actually had 3 heads and 6 arms. One of the heads was naturally Zhuowen, while the other 2 heads were in 2 different directions. They were Buddha's heads. Each of the 6 arms held a long spear that flowed with light and color. They were all powerful earth-rank spirit treasures. How did Zhuowen turn into such a strange figure? This lad must have cultivated some kind of strange secret body refining technique. Many of the onlookers frowned as they looked at Zhuowen with 3 heads and 6 arms. Their faces were filled with uncertainty. Old Gu, who was high above, looked down at Zhuowen with a hint of surprise in his calm eyes. He could faintly feel that the current Zhuowen was actually much more terrifying than before. Run! 6 of the 10 cultivators who had originally approached were killed in an instant. The remaining 4 were already filled with fear. They shouted and fled in all directions. Run? You'd better stay. At this moment, Zhuowen had finally used the nirvana of the Great Sun. His body had grown 3 heads and 6 arms. Regardless of whether it was his combat awareness or physical strength, it had already reached an extremely terrifying level. Whoosh! With a stomp of his foot, Zhuowen instantly shot out. Then, 4 shrill screams were heard. The 4 people who had fled instantly turned into 4 corpses. Puchi! 4 surging blood essences turned into 4 blood threads that burrowed into Zhuowen's body. With a rumble, Zhuowen's aura skyrocketed to the limit. Then, a muffled sound like thunder rang out from within his body. After absorbing the blood essences of more than 30 ultimate 9th Will Emperor Realm experts, Zhuowen finally made a breakthrough. He directly advanced from the advanced 9th Will Emperor Realm to the peak of the 9th Will Emperor Realm. He made a breakthrough. This lad just absorbed the blood essences of others and turned them into his own strength. Old Gu's eyes narrowed. He had clearly seen Zhuowen absorbing the blood threads. Those were the blood essences of the 4 dead cultivators. What a strange lad. This lad must die. The death of more than 30 ultimate Ninth Wheel Emperor realm cultivators had thoroughly infuriated Old Gu. They were all elite cultivators of the clan. The loss of any one of them was extremely painful. Now that more than 30 of them had been sacrificed, how could he not be pained? Just in time. Looking at Old Gu, who was charging straight at him, Zhuowen let out a long howl. With a stomp of his foot, his 6 arms brandished 6 long spears. 6 terrifying spear essences surged out from Zhuowen's body. Rumble. The instant the two came into contact, the 6 Da's spear intent domain erupted in front of Zhuowen. Following which, the old man's pupils slightly contracted as he discovered that under the terrifying might of the 6 Da's spear intent domain, his attack actually appeared to be so insignificant. Puchi. Old Gu spat out a mouthful of blood. He stepped back several hundred steps in the air before barely managing to stop himself. He stared in horror at the 3-headed, 6-armed Zhuowen in front of him. What? Zhuowen is so strong. How did he become so strong? He made Old Gu of the Xuanzuan realm retreat several hundred steps in one move. The surrounding crowd gasped in unison. They stared in disbelief at Old Gu, who was in a sorry state, and Zhuowen, who was standing in the air without moving an inch. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell who was stronger after the two of them exchanged blows. Ha! Your 3 great clans are a bunch of good-for-nothings. More than 30 Ultimate Emperor realm cultivators surrounded Zhuowen. Not only were they unable to harm a single hair on Zhuowen's body, they were even beaten to a pulp. Now, even the elders of the Xuanzuan realm have joined the fray, but they were forced to retreat several hundred meters. What a bunch of trash. Within the chaotic tripartite formation, Lu Hantian also saw the terrifying battle in the sky above the courtyard. When he saw Zhuowen kill more than 30 Ultimate Emperor realm cultivators, Lu Hantian smiled. Then, Zhuowen's 3-headed, 6-armed form forced Old Gu of the Xuanzuan realm to retreat. Even Lu Hantian revealed a trace of surprise in his heart. Zhuowen's strength had already exceeded his expectations. A mere Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator was actually able to suppress an initial stage cultivator of the Xuanzuan realm. Lan Haohai, Chao Yan, and Feng Tian all had ugly expressions. Zhuowen's battle record had also shocked the 3 of them. How did this kid grow so quickly? Chao Ji said through gritted teeth. This Zhuowen must be eliminated. Otherwise, there will be endless trouble in the future. I'd like to ask, all 4 of you are Xuanzuan realm cultivators, and I, Zhuowen, am only at the Ultimate Emperor realm. My realm is lower than yours. But now, not only are the 4 of you working together, but you're also acting so matter-of-factly. Don't you even have a basic sense of shame? Zhuowen slowly stood in the void and stared coldly at Elder Fu and the other 3 as he spoke word by word. Hearing this, Elder Fu and the other 3's faces turned ugly. Zhuowen was right. If any one of them went against Zhuowen, they would be bullying the weak. But now, the 4 of them from the Xuanzuan realm were working together to fight against a junior. After this battle, the 4 of them would probably be despised by many. After all, this wasn't something to be proud of. Humph. You talk a lot of nonsense. No matter what you say today, it's useless because you're going to die. Elder Fu snorted coldly and said to the 3 elders behind him, release your armor souls. Let's end this quickly and kill this little bastard in one fell swoop. As he spoke, Elder Fu stomped his foot, and a ray of light burst out from his body. Then, a huge black python that was hundreds of feet long appeared above Elder Fu. Elder Fu leaped up and stood on the head of the black python. This black python was Elder Fu's armor soul, the dark python. At this moment, it had been concretized. The other 3 elders also released their armor souls. They used the power of their nascent souls to concretize their armor souls. The ancient armor soul was made of countless blood-red vines. At this moment, they wrapped around Elder Fu's body and turned into a blood-red vine armor on the surface of his body. It looked majestic. The other two elders' armor souls, one of which was a long sword, and the other was a broadsword, lined up on either side of Elder Fu. In the heavenly armor continent, weapon armor souls were considered low-class armor souls. Due to their limited growth potential, concretization could only concretize weapon armor souls. Although the materialization of the weapon armor soul produced weapons that were much tougher than ordinary spiritual treasures, they were not as helpful to the four honorable realm warriors as those beast-type martial souls. Even the ancient vine martial soul was much weaker. There was no doubt that the two elders with a broadsword and a sword on either side of Elder Fu were the weakest of the four. Kill this kid as soon as possible. After the four of them released their armor souls, Elder Fu shouted coldly. He led the four of them and turned into four streams of light, dashing toward Zhuowen. This time, they had to kill Zhuowen. Zhuowen is doomed. For Mystique Venerables, and all of them are Mystique Venerables who have released their armor souls to fight. Zhuowen is no match for them. Countless warriors who were watching in the dark shook their heads and sighed. No one thought that Zhuowen could escape from the siege of Elder Fu and the other three elders. As Mystique Venerable Realm warriors, the four of you have no dignity at all. How can the four of you team up to fight a junior? Lu Nantian, who was fighting fiercely with the other two elders, also saw the actions of Elder Fu and the other three elders. His face was filled with anger. Elder Fu and the other three elders were too shameless. For Xuanzuan Realm warriors teamed up to fight a ultimate nine-wheel royal realm warrior. Unfortunately, the two elders in front of him were like sticky candy, clinging tightly to him. Lu Nantian could not free himself to save Zhuowen. On the other side of the void, Zhuowen took a deep breath. He waved his 6 arms and unleashed the 6 spear intense to the maximum. Instead of retreating, he charged toward the 4 elders. What? That Zhuowen is not running away. Is he going to fight? Isn't he digging his own grave? Zhuowen's unusual actions instantly caused shock to appear in the eyes of many people. Not only did Zhuowen not retreat, he was charging forward bravely instead. He actually intended to fight by himself, and he was simply courting death. Ultimate Sword Formation's yin-yang form. The moment he charged out, Zhuowen's mental power surged out from his mud pill palace. The greater infinity sword formation split into yin and yang and turned into a yin-yang sword formation. It suddenly swept towards Elder Fu, who was standing on the black python. Whoosh! In an instant, the yin-yang sword formation enveloped Elder Fu. Elder Fu was the strongest among the 4, so Zhuowen had to restrain him in order to have a chance of fighting. Otherwise, with Elder Fu's help, Zhuowen did not think that he could withstand the joint attack of 4 Xuanzuan realm warriors. Zhuowen. Although your mentality is strong, it's not enough to stop me. Elder Fu's voice sounded from within the yin-yang sword formation. Then, the yin-yang pattern above the sword formation shattered, and Elder Fu charged out of the formation. Humph. Don't be so sure. Zhuowen snorted and no longer suppressed his mentality. The mentality of a complete grade 5 mentality poured out and formed countless mentality storms around his body. Zhuowen's spiritual energy was tempered by the 10,000 evolution scripture. His Naiwan palace had already produced nearly 200 strands of spiritual energy. In terms of spiritual energy, Zhuowen's spiritual energy far exceeded that of a 5th stage Paragon Arcana Master. Ultimate Sword Formation's Heaven's Bane. The moment Zhuowen released all of his mentality of a complete grade 5 mentality, he used the 3rd move of the Ultimate Sword Formation, Heaven's Bane. Rumble. Countless sword lights burst out from the sword formation. The endless sword lights gathered in the void and formed an oval-shaped dome. The dome was completely formed by the sword lights. When Heaven's Bane was used, the sky fell and the earth cracked. Chapter 758. On the verge of death boom. The dome formed by the sword light instantly crushed down, completely enveloping Elder Fu and his black oil python. A sound like muffled thunder burst out from the dome, and the space within a radius of several hundred feet shattered into countless pieces like glass. Elder Gu and the other two old men were outside the dome's sword light. They looked at the shattered space in shock and retreated several thousand feet before stabilizing themselves. What a terrifying mind power! What a powerful sword formation! Zhuowen is a complete Grade 5 Arcana Master. Looking at the space that had completely collapsed under the dome's sword light, not only were old Gu and the other two stunned, but the surrounding cultivators were also stunned. Although Zhuowen had revealed a 5th grade soul force in the top 5, at that time, Wangfu Wuji simply wasn't worth Zhuowen using his full strength. Thus, everyone thought that Zhuowen was only a small success 5th grade Arcana Master. But now, after Zhuowen had used the Greater Infinite Sword Formation's 3rd sword move, the Heaven's Bane, and the mind power storm that swept across the sky, everyone realized that Zhuowen's mind power was not only at the lesser Grade 5 Arcana Master, but at the complete Grade 5 Arcana Master. Moreover, judging from the terrifying power of the Heaven's Bane, Zhuowen's mind power was even more terrifying than an ordinary complete Grade 5 Arcana Master. Mind power at the complete Grade 5 Arcana Master, this kid, just as Grand Haohai, Chao Ji, and Feng Tian reacted, they saw that Elder Fu, the strongest among them, was suppressed by the Heavenbreaker style. They didn't know whether he was dead or alive. This kid must die. Even if Elder Fu is not here, Elder Gu and the other two old men can still completely obliterate this kid. Grand Haohai's eyes were gloomy. After seeing Zhuowen's various techniques, Grand Haohai's killing intent towards Zhuowen surged. Zhuowen must die, or there would be endless trouble in the future. Elder Gu even saw the shadow of Zhuo Xiaotian in Zhuowen. Although he didn't find out that Zhuowen had a dragon soul in his body when he probed his sea of consciousness back then, his terrifying mental strength talent was actually not inferior to that of Zhuowen back then. This kind of genius had already formed a death grudge, so they definitely couldn't let him continue to live. Otherwise, when he completely matured, their 3 families would have to bear an indelible disaster. Old Gu. What are the 3 of you doing? Kill that bastard Zhuowen for me. Otherwise, all of you will be buried with me. Glancing at the stunned old Gu trio in the air, Grand Haohai involuntarily cried out in a flustered and exasperated manner. Currently, his mood was very bad. With a wave of his right hand, an even more terrifying number of blood-colored vines rushed out from his blood armor. The 2 old men with armor souls, one with a saber and one with a sword, nodded. With a stomp of their feet, they turned into 2 streamers and attacked Zhuowen from the left and right. After all, the saber and sword in the hands of the 2 old men were transformed from their armor souls. Their toughness and power were much stronger than ordinary earth-rank spiritual treasures. They were existences close to heaven-rank spiritual treasures. Whoosh! Not good. Hearing the sounds of the air being torn apart, Zhuowen's ears twitched. Naturally, he noticed the 2 old men attacking from the left and right. His eyes were extremely gloomy. He was almost exhausted to deal with the blood-red vines around him. Moreover, his mental strength was controlling the Greater Infinity Sword Formation to suppress old Fu, who was in the midst of the sword light. He really couldn't free himself to deal with the 2 old men. Die! The 2 old men growled at the same time. A saber and a sword respectively pierced Zhuowen's chest from the left and right of Zhuowen. You want me to die? It's not that easy. Zhuowen roared. His 6 arms exerted force at the same time and blocked the countless blood-red vines in front of him. 2 of his arms swung the long spear horizontally. Clang! The saber and the sword arrived in an instant and blasted on the long spear. The sound of metal clashing resounded and countless sparks burst out. The powerful force caused Zhuowen to groan. His hand went numb and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Get out of my way! Zhuowen roared. Golden light burst out from his body and the strength in his body increased by a lot. He directly blocked the attacks of the 2 old men on his left and right. Thud! Thud. 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 The two old men's pupils shrank. They felt a powerful force gushing out and involuntarily retreated dozens of meters away. Zhuowen. Don't forget that there's still me. The moment Zhuowen exploded with power and repelled the two old men, he was at his weakest. A sinister figure appeared in front of him. Not good. Hearing this, Zhuowen's expression changed drastically. He raised his head and saw that old man Gu, who was wearing blood-red armor, was already 5 meters away from him. Old man Gu clenched his fist and countless blood-red vines covered his right fist. The surface of his fist was covered with ferocious blood-red thorns. Blood rush fist. Old man Gu threw out a punch. The terrifying force even appeared on the surface of his fist and a ring-shaped airwave appeared on Zhuowen's chest. Puchi. Zhuowen suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His body bent like a shrimp and his eyes bulged. Then, he fell down like a falling star. Rumble. He smashed into the ground, creating a deep pit that was dozens of feet deep. Zhuowen struggled to get up and spat out another mouthful of blood. The rain was still falling. Occasionally, lightning would streak across the sky, bringing a brief moment of light to this pitch-black rainy night. Under the pitter-patter of the rain, Zhuowen struggled to get up from the pit. He looked up at old Gao and the other two old men in the sky. He was panting and his eyelids were drooping. The continuous battle had already exhausted Zhuowen both physically and mentally. However, there was still a breath in his heart, an extremely sullen breath. It was this breath that made Zhuowen stubbornly unwilling to fall. You can still stand up after taking a full blow from this old man's blood rush fist. Old man Gu looked down in astonishment at Zhuowen, who was struggling to get up. His gaze was filled with astonishment, but there was even more ridicule in it. Zhuowen, how are you going to fight us in your current state? You're already an arrow at the end of its flight. Let this old man send you on your way. Old man Gu let out a hearty laugh. He stomped his foot and swooped down like a rock spreading its wings. The 5 fingers of his right hand were clenched into a fist. He had actually used the blood rush fist once again. This time, he wanted to completely eliminate Zhuowen. It's over. Zhuowen is finished. Under such circumstances, he's dead for sure. In the rainy night, the crowd hiding in the dark looked at the swaying Zhuowen and old man Gu, who was swooping down like a hot knife through butter. Everyone knew that Zhuowen was doomed. I can't accept this. Zhuowen roared. 6 spears were placed in front of his chest. Blue spear intent burst forth and formed 6 spear intent domains in front of him to protect him. It's useless. Now that you've suffered such a serious injury, how much strength can you unleash? Only death awaits you. Old man Gu arrived in an instant. His right fist punched out and turned into countless blood rays. Instantly, the 6 spear intent domains in front of Zhuowen collapsed and turned into dust. Puchi. Zhuowen was forced to retreat. The 6 spears stabbed into the ground before he could barely stabilize his body. Swoosh swoosh. The moment Zhuowen stabilized his body, 2 figures swept over from the void and instantly appeared on both sides of Zhuowen. Saber light and sword light flashed and 2 cold rays of light instantly pierced into Zhuowen's abdomen. The saber and sword elders had launched a sneak attack the moment Zhuowen retreated. They wanted to kill Zhuowen. Although Zhuowen had cultivated the great sun nirvana and his physical body was unparalleled in the world, the saber and sword in the hands of the saber and sword elders were the materialization of their soul armor. They were extremely sharp and could naturally pierce through Zhuowen's body. Puchi. Zhuowen spat out another mouthful of blood. He felt unbearable pain all over his body. His mouth and nose were already flooded with blood. At this moment, he felt extremely uncomfortable. His abdomen, which had been pierced by the saber and sword, was burning with pain. Plop. Chapter 759. Blood sacrifice sealed gate drip. The rain continued to fall in the quiet night. The pitter-patter of the rain continued to reverberate throughout the land. Silence. A deathly silence. Regardless of whether it was the countless cultivators hidden in the dark, Grand Hao Hai and the other two in charge of the chaotic tripartite formation, or Lu Hantian who was trapped in the formation, all of them were dead silent. Even Lu Nantian, who was fighting with the two mystique venerable rank elders, had stopped. His pupils shrank as he stared at the figure in the courtyard below. At this moment, the golden glow on Zhuowen's body had dimmed. The 3 heads and 6 arms that grew from his body drooped powerlessly. A saber and a sword had pierced through his abdomen. Golden blood slowly flowed out from the huge wound on his abdomen like a fountain. Drip. Drip. The crisp sound of blood falling to the ground mixed with the sound of rain. It was hard to tell whether it was the sound of rain or blood. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. Everyone stopped moving as their gazes gathered on Zhuowen. Everyone had different expressions when they saw Zhuowen's abdomen that had been pierced through. Everyone knew that the 3 great clans had mobilized so many people to surround and annihilate Zhuowen. Now that Zhuowen's abdomen had been pierced through by the saber and sword elders, his injuries were fatal. In other words, Grand Hao Hai and the others had achieved their goal. Ha! Old Gu, the 3 of you have done well. Now that this kid is dead, the 3 of you will have contributed greatly when you return to the clan. A smile appeared on Grand Hao Hai's face. Soon after, his smile became even more brilliant. In the end, he raised his head and laughed loudly. His laughter was extremely savage and unbridled. Zhuowen, the thorn in his side and the pain in his flesh, had finally reached his end. How could Grand Hao Hai be happy? Even Feng Tian and Chao Yan, who were in charge of the other 2 sides of the chaotic tripartite formation, revealed carefree smiles. Bastards! You actually dared to kill Zhuowen. After a moment of silence, Lu Hantian, who was trapped in the chaotic tripartite formation, roared furiously. His eyes were filled with monstrous fury. Break for me. As he spoke, Lu Hantian stomped his foot and an even more terrifying aura burst out from his body. Waves of seemingly solid blood chi spread out from his body like a fountain. Boom! Boom! Countless blood chi condensed and turned into a blood pillar that pierced through the sky. Then, the sound of glass shattering could be heard from the void above. A huge hole was torn open in the space above the blood pillar. A huge blood-colored door shot out from the opening in the void. It turned into a blood-colored meteor and crushed toward the chaotic tripartite formation. Big Brother's armor soul, blood sacrifice to the sealed door. Lu Nanshan's eyes narrowed as he looked at the blood-red door falling from the sky. A trace of caution appeared on his face. The inherited armor soul of the house of Marquis Qin was the sealed door. However, Lu Hantian was a freak. His inherited armor soul was a mutated armor soul. Although it was also a sealed door, it had a terrifying blood chi and was extremely evil. It was called the Blood Sacrifice Sealed Door. The Blood Sacrifice Sealed Door was much more terrifying than the ordinary sealed door. It represented killing intent. Once it attacked, there would definitely be blood. It was evil and terrifying. It was because the Blood Sacrifice Sealed Door was too terrifying and evil. Moreover, this strange sealed door also had a certain level of intelligence. It would often have thoughts of backfiring. Even Lu Hantian found it difficult to completely control the Blood Sacrifice Sealed Door. Because of this, Lu Hantian rarely revealed his armor soul. He was afraid that he would suffer a backlash from the Blood Sacrifice Sealed Door if he wasn't careful. The gains would not make up for the losses. However, now that Zhuowen's life was in danger, how could Lu Hantian care about this? He only wanted to rush out of the chaotic tripartite formation and save Zhuowen. Boom! The Blood Sacrifice Sealed Door instantly arrived and landed on the chaotic tripartite formation. Suddenly, a cracking sound was heard. The chaotic tripartite formation trembled violently and cracks appeared on its surface. What? This is Lu Hantian's armor soul. Its power is so terrifying. Glan Haohai and the other two looked at the chaotic tripartite formation that was trembling violently and faintly cracking. We can't let Lu Hantian escape from the chaotic tripartite formation. The two of you, don't hold back anymore. Glan Haohai's face was solemn. He formed a seal with his hands and used his armor soul materialization. His strength soared by several times. Feng Tian and Chao Ji also knew that the situation was critical. They no longer held back and used their armor souls to suppress the blood sacrifice sealed door on the chaotic tripartite formation. At the same time, the three of them used their full strength to maintain the chaotic tripartite formation, increasing its power by several times. With the support of the three of them, the trembling of the chaotic tripartite formation calmed down a little. Its originally dim surface was suffused with a rather dazzling light. Within the formation, Lu Hantian was like a madman as he constantly bombarded the chaotic tripartite formation. The blood sacrifice sealed door was also extremely powerful. In an instant, the pressure on Glan Haohai and the other two increased greatly. Cold sweat dripped from their foreheads like soybeans. Old Gu. Quickly kill Zhuowen and retreat immediately. The sudden burst of power from Lu Hantian shocked Glan Haohai and the other two. It was too terrifying. Even with the help of the chaotic tripartite formation, they were faintly unable to withstand it. If this situation continued, Lu Hantian would eventually break out of the formation. At that time, if Zhuowen was not completely dead, then all their previous efforts would have been in vain. Old Gu also knew the urgency of the matter. He looked down at Zhuowen, who was kneeling on one knee below. The coldness in his eyes grew thicker as he said indifferently, "Zhuowen, don't blame me if you die. You can only blame yourself for offending someone you shouldn't have." As he spoke, Old Gu clenched his right hand into a fist. Dense blood-red vines covered his right fist as he used the blood rush fist again. At this moment, Zhuowen's consciousness was already blurry. He could barely sense what was happening outside. He only felt pain, a burning pain all over his body. So tired. Zhuowen only felt his eyelids getting heavier and heavier, almost drooping down as if they weighed a ton. Through the gaps in his eyelids, he could still see Old Gu diving down from above, getting closer and closer to him. Am I going to die? Am I going to die just like this? At the same time, he also saw Old Gu's blood rush fist. He was very clear about the might of the blood rush fist. In his current state, if he took this fist head-on, he would definitely die. He wanted to stand up, but the saber and sword elders pierced his abdomen with their saber and sword, ruthlessly suppressing him, making it impossible for him to stand up. In his current state, even if he moved, he would pull at the wound on his abdomen, tearing it open even wider and causing even more intense pain. However, Zhuowen was unwilling to accept this. He was unwilling to die just like this. Whoosh! Old Gu arrived in an instant. He looked down at the youth kneeling on one knee in front of him. The sneer at the corner of his mouth deepened. The blood rush fist in his right fist was even more merciless as it smashed towards Zhuowen's head. With the might of the blood rush fist, this punch was enough to smash Zhuowen's head into a bloody mist. What a pity that such a genius is going to die just like this. That's right. He's only at the ultimate 9th Will Emperor realm, but he already has the power to fight against an ancient martial art practitioner from the Xuanzuan realm. This boy's potential is probably on par with the first prince, Wangfu Wudao. The ancient martial art practitioners hiding in the shadows all shook their heads. They all sighed over Zhuowen's imminent death. Old Gu's blood rush fist was close at hand. They simply did not believe that Zhuowen had any chance of surviving. When the blood rush fist was only a few inches away from Zhuowen, almost within reach, the strong astral wind caused Zhuowen's black hair to flutter, disheveled and disheveled. Boom! A thunderous explosion suddenly surged out from Zhuowen's body. Then, a golden light as dazzling as the sun burst out from Zhuowen's body. At this moment, Zhuowen was like a little golden man, solemn and dignified. When the golden light appeared, old Gu's pupils shrank. He felt as if the blood-rush fist had sunk into the sea. It actually directly froze. Then, a huge force came over, causing old Gu to involuntarily retreat. Thump thump thump. After retreating dozens of steps, old Gu's eyes flashed. His face was filled with shock and doubt. He also did not expect that such an intense golden light would suddenly burst out from Zhuowen's body. Those who see my body will have the heart of Bodhi. Those who hear my name will break evil and cultivate good. Those who hear my dharma will obtain great wisdom. Those who understand my heart will become Buddha. The moment the golden light burst out from Zhuowen's body, a solemn Sanskrit sound slowly resounded in the world. It was like rolling thunder that rushed into the clouds. An ordinary stone flew out from Zhuowen's chest and floated above Zhuowen's head. Countless golden lights burst out from it. This is a relic? Zhuowen lifted his head with difficulty and looked at the stone floating above his head. He could not help but mutter to himself. Wasn't this the relic that withered lamp Buddha had given him? Zhuowen knew that this relic had saved his life when he was on the verge of death. Boom! A terrifying Buddhist power surged out from the relic and turned into a golden light pillar that shot into the void. Instantly, the dark night sky was flooded by a golden sea. It was as if the entire world had been dyed golden at this moment. Those who see my body will have the heart of Bodhi. Those who hear my name will break evil and cultivate good. Those who hear my dharma will obtain great wisdom. Those who understand my heart will become Buddha. The same Sanskrit sound echoed in the void, as if it was responding to the call of the relic. Then, a huge golden giant that was hundreds of thousands of feet tall stepped out from the void. This golden giant had 4 heads and 8 arms. It was indomitable and its terrifying size seemed to be able to trample the entire world under its feet. It was extremely mighty and majestic. The statue of Akalanatha. Looking at the 4-headed and 8-armed giant that came from the void, Zhuowen muttered to himself. Wasn't this giant the famous deity of Buddhism, the Akalanatha? He had not expected that the relic on him would summon the Akalanatha. Whoosh! The huge Akalanatha looked down at Zhuowen quietly. Then, with a roar, it turned into a golden light and burrowed into Zhuowen's body. Instantly, the golden light around Zhuowen's body became even more dazzling. Sacrifice the relic and become the Akalanatha. This is benefactor Zhuo's dharma fate. Fate begins and ends in a single thought. The moment the Akalanatha burrowed into his body, a calm voice sounded in Zhuowen's mind. This voice was not unfamiliar to Zhuowen. It was the voice of the withered lamp Buddha. Crack! At the same time, the relic that was floating above Zhuowen's head shattered completely with a crack. Chapter 760. Transforming into the immovable wisdom king, the golden light gradually faded. Zhuowen was still kneeling on the ground with one knee. However, he no longer had 3 heads and 6 arms. Instead, he had 4 heads and 8 arms. His height had also increased by several times. He was now 30 feet tall, like a small hill. His golden surface was filled with terrifying power. This guy, his body changed again. Elder Gu, who had retreated dozens of steps, looked at the 4-headed, 8-armed Zhuowen. His pupils shrank to the size of needles, and he could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. The 3-headed, 6-armed Zhuowen was already difficult enough to deal with. However, Zhuowen's body had changed again. He had turned into a 4-headed, 8-armed figure. Although his aura was still weak, it was much better than before. The 2 elders, one holding a saber and one sword, looked at Zhuowen, who had changed again. A trace of disbelief appeared on their faces. Let's go. The 2 elders looked at each other. They wanted to pull out the sword and saber that had pierced Zhuowen's abdomen. They wanted to get away from Zhuowen. You want to leave? Do you think that's possible? An indifferent voice suddenly rang out. Two golden arms shot out like two spiritual snakes and coiled around the saber and sword elders on both sides. Looking at the golden arms, the two elders' pupils shrank. They knew that they could not avoid it. They threw out a punch, hoping to block the attack of the golden arms. Crack! A crisp sound suddenly rang out, followed by two cries of agony. The arms of the saber and sword elders had been broken by the terrifying power of the golden arm. While repelling the sword and saber elders, Zhuowen waved his hands, and the two elders were lifted up high in his hands. What? Zhuowen's strength has become so terrifying. Elder Gu's face was filled with shock as he looked at the two elders who were instantly captured. Zhuowen's strength was much stronger than before. The two elders were actually unable to withstand a single blow from him. At this moment, Zhuowen's gaze was unusually cold. If the saber and sword elders had not ambushed him, he would not have fallen into such a desperate situation. Zhuowen was very clear that if not for the sudden change in the Saraira at the last moment, blocking the ancient blood rush fist and stimulating all the Buddhist power in the Saraira, forcibly raising the level of Zhuowen's Nirvana Vairocana to the 4th level of Dharma fate, Zhuowen would have been doomed. Zhuowen! Don't kill us, we're just following orders, spare our lives. The saber and sword elders were held in Zhuowen's hands, and his immense power suppressed them, making it so that they were powerless and unable to resist. Zhuowen's Nirvana Vairocana had broken through to the 4th level of Dharma at the critical moment of life and death. He had transformed into the Akalanatha Dharma body and his strength had undergone a qualitative leap. Whether it was strength or reaction time, it was far more terrifying than the 3rd level of Nirvana. Now that Zhuowen was seriously injured, he could only use a portion of his strength. However, this portion of his strength was still able to suppress the saber and sword elders. It was clear how terrifying the 4-headed, 8-armed Zhuowen was. Zhuowen! Let go of the saber and sword elders. They are the elders of the Feng family. Do you dare to kill them? Ancient Gu shouted sternly. Hearing this, Zhuowen's cold gaze turned slightly and immediately landed on Ancient Gu. A monstrous killing intent erupted from his eyes, as if it had materialized and was extremely terrifying. You think I don't dare to kill them? How laughable. You joined forces to bully me and kill me. Now that I, Zhuowen, have made a comeback, you think I shouldn't kill you? As he spoke, Zhuowen held the saber and sword elders with both hands and walked slowly towards Ancient Gu. He said word by word, Today, I, Zhuowen, swear that as long as I am alive, the Feng family, Chao family, and Grand family will never have peace. Zhuowen walked step by step towards Ancient Gu. The aura on his body became more and more vast and sharp, and the killing intent filled the air. The terrifying killing intent seemed to have set off a powerful storm in the surroundings, causing Ancient Gu's pupils to shrink. He could not help but take a step back. As Zhuowen took a step forward, Ancient Gu could not help but take a step back. He took more than 10 steps back. I, Zhuowen, and the 3 families will not rest until one of us is dead. Either I, Zhuowen, die, or the 3 families will be destroyed. We will not rest until one of us is dead. As he took the last step, the monstrous killing intent filled the entire sky, almost dispersing the endless dark clouds in the sky. Crack! Crack! 2 crisp sounds of bones breaking suddenly rang out the moment Zhuowen took his last step. The saber and sword elders, who were held in Zhuowen's hands, rolled their dead fish eyes. Their heads were strangely twisted as they fell to the side, dead. Blood-sucking great art. Zhuowen muttered to himself. He immediately used the blood-sucking great art. The essence blood of the saber and sword elders of the Xuanzun realm flowed into Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen's pale face gradually became rosy. His injuries were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, Zhuowen's eyes were dyed red. The killing intent on his body became even more intense and terrifying, soaring into the sky. The resentment of the saber and sword elders faintly affected Zhuowen, causing his eyes to become bloodshot. Zhuowen did not stop this killing intent. At this moment, the anger in his chest could only be completely vented by killing. He wanted to kill everyone who deserved to be killed. Bang bang. The sound of two heavy objects falling to the ground slowly rang out on the somewhat quiet ground. At this moment, the saber and sword elders had almost turned into dried corpses. They were casually thrown to the ground not far away by Zhuowen. Their eyes were wide open, and they died with grievances. The rain finally stopped, and the sound of rain also disappeared. However, the surroundings became even quieter. One could even hear the rapid breathing of many cultivators. Whether it was the cultivators hiding in the dark, Feng Tian, Chao Ji, or Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian, they all stopped moving. It was as if time had stopped. Their gazes were no longer on each other. Instead, they fell on the courtyard, on the four-headed, eight-armed youth, and on the saber and sword elders, who had turned into dried corpses. Especially when they saw the still lifeless corpses of the saber and sword elders, everyone fell silent. Although the armor souls of the saber and sword elders were not strong, and they were considered weak cultivators in the Xuanzuan realm, they were still powerful cultivators from the Xuanzuan realm. They had the terrifying power of the nascent soul realm. Now, in this ordinary courtyard, they had completely fallen at the hands of a young ultimate emperor realm cultivator. Two powerful cultivators from the Xuanzuan realm had died just like that. No one would be too calm. Dead. The saber and sword elders died just like that. In the dark, many cultivators licked their lips. Their voices were slightly trembling. This was too crazy. This was simply too crazy. Zhuowen was already extremely impressive for being able to resist the cultivators from the Xuanzuan realm as an ultimate emperor realm cultivator. However, not only had he done it now, but he had also killed two cultivators from the Xuanzuan realm. This was really beyond everyone's expectations. Ha! What nonsense are the five great clans? Even the Xuanzuan realm can't withstand a single blow. Lu Hantian, who was trapped in the chaotic tripartite formation, finally revealed a relaxed smile when he saw Zhuowen suddenly explode and kill the saber and sword elders. He looked at Grant Haohai and the other two outside the formation and mocked them without holding back. Grant Haohai, Feng Tian, and Chao Ji's expressions were extremely gloomy. The deaths of the saber and sword elders were also beyond their expectations. They had originally thought that Zhuowen was dead for sure. However, they had not expected that the strange body tempering technique that Zhuowen cultivated would actually make a breakthrough before he died. His strength increased greatly, and he was able to kill the saber and sword elders. In the courtyard, Elder Gu's eyes flickered. He actually retreated quietly. The scene of Zhuowen killing the saber and sword elders with a single blow was still vivid in his mind. Although the saber and sword elders were much weaker than him, it was not that easy to kill them as easily as Zhuowen. At least in terms of strength, Zhuowen was much stronger than him. Pu Qi. Zhuowen quickly pulled out the saber and sword from his abdomen. The might of these two saber and sword were extraordinary. Even when Zhuowen transformed into his three-headed, six-armed form, his physical body was unparalleled. However, the saber and sword could still pierce through his body, showing how sharp they were. Two of Zhuowen's 8 arms were empty. They did not have any weapons, so they could be used in place of a spear for now. The saber and sword elders are already dead. It's time for you to be buried with them. After pulling out the saber and sword, Zhuowen's strong physical body quickly healed the wound on his abdomen. Then, he turned around and stared at Elder Gu. The murderous intent in his eyes intensified. Elder Gu, who was retreating, stiffened. His eyes flickered as he snorted coldly. Do you think that I'm trash like the saber and sword elders? It's not that easy to bury me with them. I'm afraid that you will be the one buried with them. Oh. Then why did you retreat just now? Aren't you afraid? Zhuowen slowly walked toward Elder Gu. The mocking smile on his face intensified. A monstrous murderous aura burst out from his body, causing Zhuowen's clothes and hair to flutter even though there was no wind. He looked like a demon or a god, majestic and awe-inspiring. Ridiculous. Do you think that I'm afraid? Elder Gu sneered. He waved his right hand and countless blood-colored vines swept toward Zhuowen from all directions. Whoosh! The moment Elder Gu used the blood-colored vines, he did not follow up with another attack. Instead, he fled in another direction under the dumbfounded gazes of the crowd. Trash who bullies the weak and fears the strong. Do you really think that these blood-colored vines can buy you time? Through the gaps between the blood-colored vines, Zhuowen naturally saw Old Man Gu fleeing without a fight. The corners of his mouth curled up into a cold smile as he waved his 8 arms at the same time. 8 strands of concept energy erupted, forming a series of explosions in the surroundings. Boom! Boom! In the blink of an eye, the surrounding terrifying and ferocious blood-colored vines had all collapsed and turned into fine powder. Zhuowen took a step forward and his entire body transformed into a ray of light that shot towards the fleeing Elder Gu. 3 pairs of lightning wings, open up. Zhuowen formed a seal with both hands and unfurled 3 pairs of lightning wings. His speed soared to the limit and he shot out as though he had teleported. He arrived behind Elder Gu in an instant and his 8 arms suddenly swung out. Block it! Elder Gu's expression changed slightly when he saw Zhuowen chasing after him. He hurriedly turned around and waved his hands. Countless blood-colored vines swept out once again and formed a dense cluster of blood-colored vines in front of him. Break! Chapter 761. The 5 fallen mystic venerables. A terrifying ring-shaped airwave spread out in the sky, causing the surrounding space to tremble and crack. Under this force, Gu Gu and the blood-red vine were completely annihilated. Hiss! 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 Everyone gasped as they stared in disbelief at the figure that was still standing in the void. What a terrifying power! Elder Gu was an expert of the Xuanzuan realm, but he was annihilated by this power. Zhuowen was too monstrous. His physical strength alone was already at a level that others could only look up to. After killing Elder Gu, Zhuowen took a step forward and charged toward Lu Nantian. Lu Nantian was currently being attacked by 2 other Xuanzuan realm elders and was barely holding on. Run! Don't fight this kid head-on. The 2 Xuanzuan realm elders naturally saw the scene of Elder Gu being annihilated by Zhuowen. Elder Gu was stronger than the 2 of them. If even Elder Gu had died at the hands of Zhuowen, needless to say, they were no match for him. Run? Is it really that easy? A thunderous roar came from the sky. Zhuowen had 3 pairs of lightning wings on his back. He looked like a deity as he instantly blocked the path of one of the fleeing old men. His 8 arms smashed down on the old man. Damn it! Block it for me. The elder had a pointy mouth, monkey-like cheeks, and a goatee. The sole armor on his body was a pitch-black cheetah. At this moment, he was commanding the cheetah to pounce toward Zhuowen. Break! Zhuowen was expressionless as his 8 arms fell heavily on the cheetah's body. With a loud explosion, the cheetah let out a mournful cry and shattered into countless pieces. Ah! After shattering the cheetah's body, a terrifying power spread out and landed on the body of the pointy-mouthed elder, causing him to let out a mournful cry and explode into a bloody mist. Zhuowen waved his right hand and the power of the pointy-mouthed elder's blood essence was directly absorbed by Zhuowen, nourishing his body. Zhuowen couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Seeing the monkey-faced old man die in Zhuowen's hands just like that, the tall old man fled in another direction. The fear on his face became even more intense, and his speed increased by a few notches. The young man in front of him was too terrifying. His strength was about the same as the monkey-faced old man. Even the monkey-faced old man was no match for Zhuowen, let alone him. Zhuowen's eyes were cold and ruthless. There was no way that Zhuowen would let them off. Since you're already here, you might as well stay here forever. Why run? Zhuowen muttered in a low voice. His 3 pairs of lightning wings unfolded, and he transformed into a bolt of lightning. In the time of 5 breaths, he finally caught up to the tall old man. Similarly, with a single move, the old man didn't even let out a groan before exploding into a bloody mist. The abundant power of the blood essence filled Zhuowen's body with explosive power. The aura in his body increased by several times. With a loud explosion, Zhuowen's aura became unprecedentedly powerful. Just one more step and I'll be able to advance from the pinnacle of the Nine-Will Emperor realm to the half-step Xuanzuan realm. After absorbing the power of the blood essence of 5 Xuanzuan realm ancient martial art practitioners, Zhuowen's aura was now terrifyingly powerful. Zhuowen had a premonition that if he absorbed the blood essence of one more Xuanzuan realm ancient martial art practitioner, he would be able to successfully break through to the half-step Xuanzuan realm. What a terrifying aura of resentment. It's actually faintly affecting my mind. At this moment, Zhuowen's eyes were scarlet like a wild beast's. They were filled with brutality and killing intent. If someone who wasn't resolute met Zhuowen's gaze, they would probably be frightened. These blood-red eyes didn't seem like the eyes of a human at all. They were filled with too many negative emotions and revealed too much killing intent. He was like a bloodthirsty beast. Fortunately, the demon-suppressing green coffin on Zhuowen's back was continuously absorbing the terrifying aura of resentment in Zhuowen's body. Otherwise, the aura of resentment of 5 Xuanzuan realm ancient martial art practitioners would be extremely terrifying. Even if Zhuowen had a strong will, he probably wouldn't have been able to withstand it. At this point, apart from Elder Fu, who was trapped by the infinite sword formation, the other 5 Xuanzuan realm elders had all died. They had all died at the hands of Zhuowen alone. This is so powerful. Lu Nanshan's mouth was slightly agape as he watched Zhuowen kill the 2 elders who had besieged him. In the end, this was the only sentence that could express the shock in his heart. Relying on the cultivation of an ultimate 9th Will Emperor to kill 5 Xuanzuan realm beginner stage ancient martial art practitioners in one fell swoop. Such a magnificent feat was simply too terrifying. Among the younger generation, perhaps only the mysterious Qing Yan of the Azure Dragon Sub-Temple and the domineering and ruthless Huangfu Wudao of the imperial family could achieve such a feat now. There was one more such person, and that was a young man who had come from Qin County, one of the 8 counties outside the imperial capital county. His name was Zhuowen. There was no doubt that after tonight, Zhuowen's reputation would spread like wildfire throughout the entire imperial city and even the imperial capital, and even the entire Qing Xian Empire. Tonight's battle undoubtedly proved just how powerful and terrifying the potential of an unknown youth like Zhuowen was. Lan Haohai, Feng Tian, and Chao Ji all turned ghastly pale. They silently stared at the 4-headed, 8-armed youth who stood in the air like a god. This time, they had sent out over 30 ultimate 9th Will Emperor experts and 6 beginner stage Xuanzuan realm elders to deal with Zhuowen, who was only an ultimate 9th Will Emperor. Initially, they had thought that this mission would be a surefire success. With the lineup they had sent out, even a mid-stage Mystique Venerable Realm powerhouse would not be able to escape, let alone a late-stage Ultimate Emperor Realm powerhouse. However, the final result was out of everyone's expectations. Over 30 Ultimate 9th Will Emperor experts had all died, and 5 of the 6 Xuanzuan Realm Elders had died. The only survivor, Elder Fu, had been trapped by Zhuowen's infinite sword formation. Without a doubt, the mission this time had failed. Lan Haohai and the others had suffered a crushing defeat. What made their expressions even uglier was that their 3 clans had already formed a deep enmity with Zhuowen. They would not rest until one of them was dead. Now, the natural talent and strength that Zhuowen revealed had already caused the 3 of them to be shocked in their hearts. They were truly unable to imagine that if this kid really matured and attained the 4th Exalt realm, then he would probably take revenge on their 3 great clans. This was a potential threat, and if he truly matured, this potential threat would be fatal. The three patriarchs wanted nothing more than to personally come down and kill Zhuowen. However, they could not and did not dare to do so right now. This was because the chaotic tripartite formation required the three of them to maintain it. If any one of them left, Lu Hantian would be able to break out of the formation easily. At that time, the three of them would probably be the ones to suffer. Therefore, the three patriarchs could only stand outside the chaotic tripartite formation and silently watch as the elites and elders of their clans were slaughtered one by Zhuowen. The three of them could still accept the fact that over 30 ultimate Ninth Will Emperor experts had been killed. After all, with the resources of their three clans, it would not be too difficult to nurture more ultimate Ninth Will Emperor experts. However, the elders of the Xuanzun realm had also been completely wiped out. Their hearts ached faintly, and their hatred for Zhuowen grew even stronger. The cultivation of Xuanzun realm cultivators could not be done with sufficient resources. This was because advancing from the ultimate emperor realm to the Xuanzun realm required comprehension and cultivation. If your comprehension and cultivation were not sufficient, you would not be able to reach the Xuanzun realm no matter how many resources you had. Among the three clans, the number of Xuanzun realm cultivators could be counted on two hands. This number could be said to be extremely rare. Now that they had lost two, it could be said to be a heavy loss for them. Zhuowen, you little bastard, our three clans will never let you off. No one will be able to save you in the future. Grand Haohai roared angrily. He could no longer suppress the anger in his heart. Ha ha! Zhuowen laughed. His laughter was extremely deranged. He stared coldly at Grand Haohai as if he was looking at an idiot. He said word by word, "You old bastard Grand, when did I, Zhuowen, ever provoke your Grand family? We did not even have a deep grudge before. It was only a marriage contract that brought us together a little. But is this a big deal? It shouldn't be. But because of this small marriage contract, your Grand family first came to break off the engagement. Of course, I, Zhuowen, did not care about this marriage. I agreed to break off the engagement, so I wrote a letter of divorce. But you did not accept it, causing our Zhuo family to have nothing. You wanted to destroy the marriage contract. Later on, because of Big Brother Hantian, we came to an agreement. That was the battle for the Azure Emperor rankings. But that bitch from your clan, Grand Haohai, did not keep her promise. She openly attacked me in the Peach Blossom origin map and tried to take my life. She even spoke rudely to me like a shrew. I accept all of this. After all, the final results of the Azure Emperor rankings have not been released yet. I, Zhuowen, am not in a hurry. Tomorrow is the day of the conferred marquee battle. On the eve of the conferred marquee battle, you joined forces with the Feng and Chao clans and sent out such a large group to encircle a mere ultimate emperor realm cultivator like me. At this point, Zhuowen raised his head. His eyes were filled with sharpness as he stared indifferently at Grand Haohai. He said, "From the beginning to the end, when have you, Grand Haohai, ever intended to let me, Zhuowen, off?" Grand Haohai's face stiffened when he heard these words. Zhuowen was right. He, Zhuowen, had never provoked the Grand family. On the contrary, it was the Grand family who had forced Zhuowen time and time again, even wanting to take his life. Countless warriors who were hiding in the dark also had a look of realization in their eyes. If what Zhuowen said was true, the Grand family was really despicable and shameless. And now you're telling me that you will never let me off. Chapter 762. Elder Fu's fear. Once those words were spoken, Grand Haohai's expression immediately darkened. Zhuowen actually dared to speak to him in such a manner before the gazes of the crowd. This caused Grand Haohai's killing intent towards Zhuowen to become even denser. Little bastard. Who do you think you are? To me, you and your Zhuo family are just lowly ants. What right do you have to speak to me like this? Grand Haohai snorted coldly. His voice was as bone-chilling as winter. Ha! In any case, I, Zhuowen, have already sworn that I, Zhuowen, will not let your grand family, Feng family, and Chao family off. As long as I, Zhuowen, am alive, I will not rest until I'm dead. Unless you can kill me in advance. Zhuowen straightened his back and raised his head. He looked at Grand Haohai, Feng Tian, and Chao Ji fearlessly. There was no fear in his eyes. Zhuowen, good job. I don't like these three families either. When the time comes, we'll turn them upside down. Within the chaotic tripartite formation, Lu Hantian chuckled. After all, he was trapped by Grand Haohai and the other two with the chaotic tripartite formation as soon as he appeared. He had long been suppressing a bellyful of anger in his heart. Naturally, he wanted to settle the score with the three of them. Hearing Lu Hantian's words, Grand Haohai, Feng Tian, and Chao Ji's faces instantly turned ugly. After all, Lu Hantian was a heavenly venerable realm expert. If he went to their families to make trouble, they would really have a headache. Big brother Hantian. No need. I, Zhuowen, will personally visit the three families in the future. I, Zhuowen, will take revenge for today's grudge one by one. Zhuowen shook his head, his voice extremely cold. Although using Lu Hantian to take revenge on the three great clans would be effective immediately, the three great clans had been established in the imperial city for many years, and Lu Hantian was not a lone wolf. There was no need for him to offend the three great clans for her. Lu Hantian furrowed his brows, but after thinking about it, he understood what Zhuowen meant. He nodded his head and said, "Since you have made up your mind, Big Brother will not forcefully change your mind. However, before you grow up, I won't let those three old fellows touch you. If they dare to touch you again, I don't mind touching their family's younger generation, hee hee." Hearing this, Grand Haohai and the other two's pupils shrank. Lu Hantian's words were a naked threat. In other words, if they dared to touch Zhuowen again, Lu Hantian would use the same method to kill their family's juniors. Lu Hantian, don't be too arrogant. Do you really think that you can do whatever you want just because you're a heavenly venerate? Let me tell you, it's not like our family doesn't have any heavenly venerates. Hearing Lu Hantian's naked threat, Feng Tian could not help but retort in a gloomy voice. I want to kill your family's juniors. Do you think that a heavenly venerate can stop me? Lu Hantian crossed his arms and laughed mockingly. Feng Tian narrowed his eyes and snorted coldly, but he did not refute. Lu Hantian was right. If he insisted on killing their family's juniors, even a heavenly venerate would not be able to stop him. Boom! Suddenly, dense cracks appeared on the surface of the huge dome formed by the Greater Infinity Sword formation. Then, the cracks continued to expand in front of everyone's eyes before finally collapsing completely. Whoosh! A slightly battered figure stepped on a huge black python that was hundreds of feet long and flew out of the collapsing sword light. Wasn't that Elder Fu, who was trapped by Zhuowen's Heaven's Bane at the beginning? Zhuowen! You little bastard! Today, I'll skin you alive and hack you into pieces. At that moment, Elder Fu's hair was disheveled, and his clothes were tattered. He looked dispirited, and there were traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. Elder Fu roared angrily as soon as he came out. Zhuowen's Heaven's Bane had put him in such a sorry state. Elder Fu's heart was already filled with rage. He was determined to pull out Zhuowen's tendons and peel off his bones so that he would die in pain. Over there. You're dead this time, little bastard. Elder Fu did not see the corpses of his 5 companions when he came out. Instead, he locked his gaze on Zhuowen, who had grown 4 heads and 8 arms. He was furious. Whoosh! Elder Fu stomped on the ground and commanded the onyx python to dash toward Zhuowen as fast as lightning with an aggressive aura. Elder Fu! No, come back quickly. Zhuowen is not someone you can handle. Seeing that Elder Fu, who had just broken through the dome, was charging toward Zhuowen, Grand Haohai's expression changed drastically, and he quickly stopped him. Elder Fu was an elder of the Grand Family, and he was stronger than the 5 elders from before. He was already a martial artist who was half a step into the middle stage of the Xuanzuan realm. Even so, after witnessing Zhuowen's terrifying strength, Grand Haohai knew that Elder Fu was no match for Zhuowen. After the Nirvana Vairocana had broken through to the 4th level of Dharma, Zhuowen's physical strength had reached its peak. He probably had the strength to fight a martial artist of the middle stage of the Xuanzuan realm. His strength was much more terrifying than Elder Fu's. Don't worry, family head. This time, I'll definitely bring you this little bastard's head. Elder Fu did not slow down when he heard Grand Haohai's shout. Instead, he sped up. Although he had some doubts about Grand Haohai's words, he believed in his own strength more. Zhuo Wen was merely an ultimate 9-wheel emperor. How could such a person compare to him? In front of a mystique venerate, Zhuo Wen was as insignificant and weak as an ant. Little bastard. I think you'd better accept your fate. Chapter 763. Half a step into the Xuanzuan realm. Elder Fu's teeth chattered and his pupils constricted when he felt the chill on his neck. Zhuowen had captured him with a flip of his hand. That was too terrifying. Zhuowen, I'm an elder of the Glan family. Do you dare to kill me? Elder Fu screamed in fear at the brink of death. Idiot. I've already killed the other 5 elders. Do you think I'll care about you? The smile on Zhuowen's face grew colder. These Xuanzuan realm elders all thought highly of themselves. In their hearts, they only wanted to kill him, Zhuowen. Shouldn't Zhuowen kill them? It was truly laughable. Zhuowen, you'd better let Elder Fu go. Otherwise, even if I can't deal with you, can you guarantee that the Zhuo family will be safe? Grand Haohai's gaze turned even gloomier. Elder Fu had been in the Grand family for a very long time. He had been an elder for 2 generations, and his seniority was very high. Moreover, when Grand Haohai was still weak, Elder Fu had taught him. Now that he saw Elder Fu being held in Zhuowen's hand, how could Elder Fu be in a good mood? Are you threatening me with the Zhuo family? Zhuowen's voice suddenly turned cold. How dare Elder Fu threaten him with the Zhuo family in front of him? That had crossed Zhuowen's bottom line. Family was Zhuowen's reverse scale. If anyone used the Zhuo family to threaten Zhuowen, they would undoubtedly cross Zhuowen's reverse scale. The Zhuo family is as weak as an ant. I think you'd better think carefully. Don't destroy the Zhuo family because of a moment of impulse. Elder Fu snorted coldly. His gaze grew even colder. Good. How dare you threaten my Zhuo family? Since that's the case, don't blame me for being ruthless. Zhuowen's voice was as cold as ever as he exerted force with his right hand. Elder Fu let out a muffled groan and exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Immediately, surging blood essence energy flowed from Elder Fu's body into Zhuowen's. Elder Fu was the most powerful of the 6 elders, and the power of his essence blood was the most abundant. When Zhuowen absorbed all of Elder Fu's essence blood and converted it into his own origin energy, Zhuowen let out a roar, and an even more terrifying aura burst forth. This aura was so strong that it almost turned into a pillar of light. It had the power to pierce through the sky and shake the heavens and the earth. What a terrifying aura! Could it be that this kid is about to advance? Countless cultivators looked up at the sky. Their eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the figure that was bursting with countless rays of white light. Zhuowen's cultivation had risen from the late stage to the peak of the Ultimate Emperor realm after absorbing the essence blood of more than 39 Ultimate Emperor realm cultivators. Now that he had absorbed the essence blood of 6 Xuanzuan realm cultivators, the energy in his body was so abundant that it was almost shocking. In an instant, his aura broke through the shackles of the peak of the Ultimate Emperor realm. Elder Fu's dead body and Zhuowen's body were covered in white light. His expression was ugly as he stared at the dead Elder Fu. The killing intent in his eyes was almost tangible. If it weren't for the fact that he had to control the mixed yuan tripartite formation, Elder Fu would have personally killed that little bastard Zhuowen long ago. Just as everyone raised their heads in anticipation, thinking that Zhuowen would finally break through to the Xuanzuan realm, the pillar of light that pierced through the sky actually slowly dimmed. In the end, it retreated into Zhuowen's body. In the end, Zhuowen didn't succeed in his breakthrough. No nascent soul descended from the sky. Zhuowen's current situation was extremely similar to Qing Yan's situation in the throne room. He had failed his first breakthrough, so he should be half a step into the Xuanzuan realm right now. However, with the experience of failing his first breakthrough, his chances of success when he tried to break through to the Xuanzuan realm for the second time would undoubtedly increase greatly. The pillar of light disappeared, and Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes. There was a trace of disappointment in his gaze. In fact, after absorbing all of Elder Fu's essence and blood, Zhuowen immediately tried to break through to the Xuanzuan realm. However, the result was rather disappointing. He didn't succeed in breaking through. Shaking his head, Zhuowen didn't care too much. Although he had failed to break through to the Xuanzuan realm, he had at least reached half a step into the Xuanzuan realm. Although he had narrowly escaped death from the three great clans tonight, Zhuowen had also gained a lot. Not only had he broken through to the fourth level of the nirvana of the Great Sun at the brink of death, but he had also broken through to the fourth level of the Dharma realm. Furthermore, he had relied on the blood essence of more than 30 ultimate Nine-Will Emperor realm and 6 mystique Venerable realm elders to raise his cultivation from late-stage ultimate Nine-Will Emperor realm to half-step mystique Venerable realm. He was only half a step away from mystique Venerable realm. Once I reach the Xuanzuan realm, I will be able to materialize Xiao He. I wonder how powerful Xiao He will be after materializing. Thinking of Little Black's mysterious origin and the fact that Little Black's quality was even above the 9th grade dragon soul, Zhuowen was looking forward to it. If Little Black really materialized, what kind of power would it possess? After all, a dragon soul was extremely powerful. It was many times more powerful than an ordinary armor soul. Even Qing Yan only had a 3rd grade dragon soul in his body. However, if Qing Yan reached the Xuanzuan realm, with the help of a 3rd grade dragon soul materialization, his combat strength would completely crush cultivators of the same level. In the Xuanzuan realm, he would be invincible. Perhaps only the supreme stage cultivators, who were one level higher than the Xuanzuan realm, would be able to suppress Qing Yan, who had a 3rd grade dragon soul. On the other hand, Blackie was in existence that was even higher than a rank 9 dragon soul. If he really did advance to mystique venerable rank, he would probably immediately possess the combat strength of a venerable rank. He might even be able to fight against a golden venerable rank powerhouse. After all, in the history of Ryuka, once the Ryuka patriarchs with 9th grade dragon souls awakened their 9th grade dragon souls and their cultivation reached the 4th supreme stage, they would be invincible among cultivators of the same level. This was also why the Ryuka was so prosperous 10,000 years ago. The most fundamental reason was that almost every patriarch would awaken a top-notch 9th grade dragon soul. Once such a monstrous genius grew up, they would be extremely terrifying. Once the dragon soul was awakened, they would be invincible among cultivators of the same level. It was because of this terrifying dragon soul that the Ryuka was able to rule the eastern lands for so long. If not for the terrifying calamity 10,000 years ago and the Blue Dragon Hall's sneak attack, the Ryuka would not have declined. After reaching the half-step Xuanzuan realm, Zhuowen's gaze fell on Grant Haohai and the other two who were presiding over the chaotic tripartite formation. Big brother Han Tian. Let me give you a hand. Zhuowen laughed loudly. With a stomp of his foot, the 4th stage of the Great Sun Nirvana realm was activated. 4 heads and 8 arms were revealed, and in an instant, he reached the blood sacrifice seal above the chaotic tripartite formation. Little bastard. You dare. Seeing Zhuowen standing above the blood sacrifice seal, Grant Haohai, Feng Tian, and Chao Zhi's expressions changed greatly. Now, the three of them were in a deadlock with Lu Hantian by relying on the chaotic tripartite formation. If Zhuowen were to interfere, it was very likely that the deadlock between them would be broken. This was like a balanced scale. If one side fell into a feather as light as a goose's feather, it would immediately cause the balance to tilt. Now, Zhuowen was like that feather. Although Zhuowen's cultivation was not as high as Grant Haohai and the other two, if he were to add fuel to the fire on the blood sacrifice seal, it would completely break the deadlock between the two sides. Little bastard. Get out of my way. Grant Haohai's right hand seal changed and pointed a finger at Zhuowen's back. A green energy swept out. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed and his 8 arms went up to meet the attack. Only a slight explosion was heard. Zhuowen's pupils shrank and he retreated continuously. His 8 arms were slightly numb. Grant Haohai was indeed a golden venerable expert. Just a casual attack was enough to make Zhuowen, who was in a 4-headed and 8-armed state, retreat continuously. Even his arms were numb because of it. It's not that easy to stop me. Zhuowen opened his 8 arms again. At the same time, countless amounts of mental strength swept out and turned into countless mental storms around his body. They all blasted on the energy. Bang! In an instant, the energy was broken by Zhuowen. Then, Zhuowen rushed toward the blood sacrifice seal again. His 8 arms slammed on the top of the blood sacrifice seal. A terrifying force erupted and the surrounding air waves spread out. Rumble. Zhuowen's attack caused the entire chaotic tripartite array to tremble violently again. Lu Hantian, who was inside the array, also knew that this was an opportunity. He quickly unleashed his strength and attacked from the inside with all his strength. Suddenly, the chaotic tripartite array trembled even more violently, as if it was about to collapse. Grant Haohai's expression was unsightly to the extreme, and he was extremely hateful in his heart. If it wasn't for him placing most of his strength on the chaotic tripartite formation, then he would have been able to kill Zhuowen with a single move when he flashed towards the sealed door. Patriarch Grant, the chaotic tripartite array can't hold on for too long. We must leave now. Otherwise, when Lu Hantian comes out, it will be too late for us to leave. Feng Tian and Chao Zhi's faces changed drastically when they felt the chaotic tripartite array trembling even more violently. They turned to look at Grant Haohai and shouted in unison. Grant Haohai stared at the chaotic tripartite array that was about to collapse. He clenched his teeth and said in a deep voice, "Let's go." As he spoke, Grant Haohai, Feng Tian and Chao Zhi immediately turned into 3 streaks of light. They directly abandoned the chaotic tripartite array and rushed towards the distance, instantly disappearing from everyone's sight. Zhuowen quietly stared at the 3 figures that had disappeared. His eyes were filled with indifference. Feng family, Chao family and Grant family. He, Zhuowen, would not let today's enmity go so easily. There would be plenty of time in the future. Rumble. A loud sound was heard. The chaotic tripartite array finally collapsed completely under Lu Hantian's wild attacks. Lu Hantian leapt out of the range of the array. Those 3 old bastards fled faster than dogs. Humph. After walking out of the array, Lu Hantian looked around and found that there was no trace of Grant Haohai and the other 2. He could not help but snort coldly. After cursing inwardly, Lu Hantian stared at Zhuowen with a burning gaze. He laughed loudly and said, "Zhuowen, you're really something. I really did not expect that you were actually hiding such a terrifying strength. Even the 6 elders of the Xuanzun realm were killed by you. I'm afraid that in a few days, tonight's deeds will spread throughout the imperial capital. At that time, you'll be famous." Zhuowen shrugged and said, "Big brother Hantian, don't make fun of this little brother. If it wasn't for the fact that I had a slight breakthrough in a matter of life and death, I'm afraid that you wouldn't be able to see me now. Ha, as the saying goes, one who survives a great disaster is bound to have good fortune later. Kid, you've gained a lot of benefits tonight. In tomorrow's conferred marquee battle, you'll definitely enter the top 3. Come, let's go back to the Drunken Spring Pavilion. Lu Hantian was obviously very happy. He hugged Zhuowen and led Lu Nantian back to the Drunken Spring Pavilion. Chapter 764. Undercurrent surges. The night grew darker and darker. The rain had already stopped and the capital was completely silent under the cover of night. However, the cultivators in the capital were no longer as calm as before. The Chao, Feng, and Glan clans, 3 of the 5 great clans of the capital, had aggressively led numerous experts to the Drunken Spring Pavilion to surround and kill Zhuowen. Even the heavenly venerate Lu Hantian had been trapped by the Glan Haohai, Chao Ji, and Feng Tian's mixed Yuan tripartite formation. Zhuowen had almost no helpers and was all alone. Originally, everyone had thought that Zhuowen would be dead without a doubt under such a mighty formation. However, the final result had greatly exceeded everyone's expectations. Not only had 6 Xuanzun realm experts and over 30 Ultimate Emperor realm cultivators failed to kill Zhuowen, they had been completely annihilated. This sensational news spread through the streets and alleys of the Imperial City on this quiet night, causing the quiet Imperial City to become lively once again. In the Glan clan's mansion, the young geniuses of the Glan clan had not gone to sleep. They were all standing in the courtyard and looking up at the sky. At the very front of these young geniuses was Glan Baihe, who wore a long dark green dress and had a graceful figure. Her beautiful eyebrows were slightly furrowed. For some reason, she had a bad premonition. "Sister, what are you worried about? Father has joined forces with the Feng and Chao clans and sent out such a powerful formation. Zhuowen will definitely die." Glan Daffodil, who was standing beside Glan Baihe, was astonished when she saw Glan Baihe's uneasy expression. The young geniuses of the Glan clan basically knew about tonight's assassination attempt. Furthermore, Glan Baihe and Glan Daffodil were Glan Haohai's daughters. They knew the formation of this assassination attempt like the back of their hands. There were more than 30 Ultimate 9-Will Emperor warriors and 6 Mystique Venerable Realm Elders. Such a terrifying lineup could even take down a mid-middle stage Mystique Venerable Realm warrior. On the other hand, Zhuowen was only a late-stage Ultimate Emperor Realm Ancient martial art practitioner. In the face of such a lineup, he had no way of resisting at all. "But father, you're making a fuss over nothing. That Zhuowen's talent is indeed strong, and his strength is not bad, but the lineup sent out this time is a bit too much." The Great Glen Daffodil spoke again, believing that Great Glen Haohai's lineup this time was making a mountain out of a molehill and was completely unnecessary. In the Glen Daffodil's opinion, just the 30 or so Ultimate 9th Will Emperor Realm cultivators would be enough to capture Zhuowen with ease. That little bastard will also have such a day. This is the consequence of offending our Grant family. Thinking that Zhuowen might die in this assassination attempt, the curve at the corner of Glen Daffodil's mouth became even more obvious. Back then, she had gone to the Zhuo family to destroy the marriage certificate, but had been taught a lesson by Zhuowen. She would never forget this grudge. "Narcissus, you're right. The lineup this time is so vast. That Zhuowen will definitely die. However, I don't know why, but I keep having an ominous premonition. This premonition is making me very worried." Naturally, Glen Lily also knew how terrifying the lineup sent to assassinate Zhuowen this time was. If there were no accidents, then Zhuowen would definitely die. However, there was always a trace of uneasiness in her heart. This trace of uneasiness made her feel extremely uncomfortable. Swoosh! Just as the many young geniuses of the Grant family were anxiously waiting, a stream of light streaked across the sky and arrived above the courtyard in an instant. "Greetings, family head. Greetings, family head." The other young geniuses in the courtyard all had looks of reverence on their faces. They all cupped their hands towards the descending figure with reverence in their eyes. This figure was Grant Haohai, who had just returned from the Drunken Spring Pavilion. At this moment, Grant Howhai's face was extremely gloomy. A cold light flashed in his eyes. He waved his hand towards the other geniuses and said, "All of you, leave first." Yes. After Grant Howhai said this, the other geniuses cupped their hands again and left the courtyard. In the end, only Glen Lily and Glen Daffodil were left standing in the courtyard. Whoosh! Grant Howhai slowly descended. He stared at Glen Lily as if he wanted to say something. "Father! Did you already kill Zhuowen? And where is Elder Fu and the others? Why didn't they come with you?" Glen Daffodil immediately went up to greet Grant Howhai as soon as he descended. Her beautiful eyes looked behind Grant Howhai and found that there was no one else there. A trace of doubt appeared on her pretty face. She knew that before Grant Howhai left, he had taken with him 2 early-stage Xuanzuan realm elders, including Elder Fu, and more than 10 ultimate Emperor realm cultivators. Now that Grant Howhai had returned, but Elder Fu and the others weren't with him, an ominous feeling spread in the hearts of the 2 girls. Elder Fu and the others are all dead. Grant Howhai's voice was low as he spat out these words through gritted teeth. A trace of vicissitude appeared on his face. Dead? They're all dead. Father, are you joking? More than 10 ultimate Emperor realm cultivators and 2 early-stage Xuanzuan realm cultivators died just like that? Glen Daffodil's pupils shrank to the size of needles. Her eyes were filled with disbelief as she cried out in surprise. Glen Lily's expression wasn't much better than Glen Daffodil's, but she was still calmer than Glen Daffodil. She said in a low voice, "Could it be that Lu Hantian killed them?" At this moment, Glen Lily was extremely calm. 2 Xuanzuan realm cultivators and more than 10 ultimate Emperor realm cultivators working together weren't something that an ordinary cultivator could kill. Thus, Glen Lily immediately thought of Lu Hantian. After all, Lu Hantian was a heavenly venerate cultivator. Dealing with the Xuanzuan realm cultivators was as easy as slaughtering dogs. What made Grand Baihe and Grand Howhai puzzled was that with Grand Howhai, Feng Tian, and Chao Ji, the 3 patriarchs, coupled with the terrifying power of the mixed Yuan tripartite array, wouldn't they be able to trap Lu Hantian? Grand Howhai shook his head and smiled bitterly. Lu Hantian was trapped by me, Chao Ji, and Feng Tian using the mixed Yuan tripartite formation at the first moment. It's actually not him. Could it be that some expert saved Zhuowen? Glen Lily's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly as she asked in surprise. That's not it either. Elder Fu and the others were killed by Zhuowen. The experts sent by the 3 families were completely annihilated. They all died at the hands of Zhuowen. Grant Howhai took a deep breath and slowly said something that shocked Glen Daffodil and Glen Lily. The experts sent by the 3 families had actually been completely annihilated while encircling Zhuowen. Furthermore, the instigator was actually the target of their assassination, Zhuowen. Glen Lily's delicate body trembled slightly as her cherry lips parted slightly. She said in disbelief, "Father, are you lying to us? Zhuowen's cultivation is only at the late-stage Ultimate Emperor realm. How could he be a match for Elder Fu and the others from the Xuanzuan realm with such a cultivation?" Although this shocking news came from Grant Howhai's mouth, Glen Lily still didn't quite believe it. It wasn't that she didn't believe Grant Howhai, but the news that Grant Howhai spoke of was simply too unbelievable. 6 early-stage elders from the Xuanzuan realm and more than 30 late-stage Ultimate Emperor realm ancient martial art practitioners had surrounded and annihilated a late-stage Ultimate Emperor realm ancient martial art practitioner. No matter how one looked at it, there was no suspense in such a battle. However, the late-stage Ultimate Emperor realm ancient martial art practitioner had won in the end and killed everyone. Don't underestimate Zhuowen. That kid is very strange. He has cultivated a very strange body tempering technique. This body tempering technique actually allowed him to have 4 heads and 8 arms. It is because of this body tempering technique that this kid's strength is extremely terrifying. He is already comparable to ancient martial art practitioners from the Xuanzuan realm. Grant Howhai's gaze darkened slightly. When he thought of Zhuowen's peerless grace as the Wisdom King, a trace of fear appeared in his eyes. The four-headed, eight-armed Zhuowen's strength was too terrifying. The early-stage Xuanzuan realm ancient martial art practitioners hadn't even been able to withstand a single blow from him before they had perished. When they saw Grant Haohai's serious expression, Glen Lily and Glen Daffodil finally realized that Grant Haohai wasn't joking with them. If what Grant Haohai said was true, then Zhuowen was too terrifying. If he could even kill an early-stage Xuanzuan realm ancient martial art practitioner, then wouldn't Zhuowen's combat strength be comparable to a mid-stage Xuanzuan realm ancient martial art practitioner? Furthermore, Zhuowen's cultivation has increased again. He has reached the half-step Xuanzuan realm. Grant Haohai spoke again, causing Glen Lily's delicate body to tremble. The astonishment in her beautiful eyes became even more intense. How could Zhuowen's cultivation increase so quickly? He was still at the late-stage Ultimate Emperor realm 10 days ago, but he had already reached the half-step Xuanzuan realm tonight. This speed was too fast. Father, then what do you mean? Glen Lily raised her head slightly. The astonishment in her eyes slowly faded and was replaced by calmness. She knew that Grant Haohai wouldn't mention this in front of her for no reason. Lily. If you encounter Zhuowen in the Marquis Conferral battle tomorrow, forfeit. Grant Haohai hesitated for a moment before finally saying this. Zhuowen was now mature, and his cultivation had surpassed Glen Lily's. He knew that Glen Lily was no longer a match for Zhuowen. In addition, he had formed a deadly feud with Zhuowen tonight. Grant Haohai was really afraid that when they were in the arena, Zhuowen would deliberately unleash Glen Lily's strength. Hearing this, Glen Lily's pupils shrank. Her father actually asked her to forfeit tomorrow and give up on the Marquis Conferral battle. Quietly, Glen Lily suddenly fell silent. Grant Haohai didn't urge her, as he knew how she felt at the moment. After a while, Glen Lily suddenly raised her head and stared at Grant Haohai. Father, give me the near-hand mirror tomorrow. I want to fight. Hearing this, Grant Haohai's pupils shrank. He emphasized again, Lily. Don't be rash. You should know how strong Zhuowen is now. Even if you have the near-hand mirror, you might not necessarily win. I'm willing to give it a try. I won't let Zhuowen divorce me so easily. Saying this, Glen Lily's beautiful eyes were filled with determination. Waves of energy turned into a hurricane and swept out from her body. Then, it turned into a pillar of energy that shot up into the sky. A terrifying aura spread out. This is, the mystic comprehending realm. Chapter 765. The peak of perfection. A figure was silently sitting cross-legged on the top floor of the intoxicated spring pavilion. It was a young man with delicate features and steady breathing. Tomorrow is the Marquis battle. Kid, you seem to have comprehended something. A black light flew out from the young man's forehead and turned into a Xiaohei dog. It sat on the young man's shoulder and spoke casually. Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes and looked at Xiaohei on his shoulder. He said indifferently, the battle in the first half of the night allowed me to comprehend a lot of things. My spear intent is still not perfect. As he spoke, Zhuowen suddenly stood up, and with a squeeze of his right hand, a bone spear appeared in his palm. Whoosh! 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 Zhuowen moved like lightning and turned into a shadow above the pavilion. The long spear in his hand pierced out countless cold lights in the air. It was as bright as the stars in the night sky. Stomp! Zhuowen stepped on the eaves and leaped into the air. He stepped on the void and the bone spear in his hand evolved one move after another. His movements seemed slow, but they were actually as fast as lightning. A mysterious concept faintly spread out from the bone spear and formed countless blue spear shadows around Zhuowen's body. Surrounded by countless spear shadows, the speed of Zhuowen's spear dance became faster and faster. It was so fast that it was almost impossible to see it with the naked eye. Looks like the battle in the first half of the night has given this kid a lot of inspiration. He has actually unleashed his spear intent to such an extent. Xiao He lay on the roof and stared at Zhuowen's figure. Surrounded by countless spear shadows, every move of the spear became faster and faster. A trace of astonishment appeared in her eyes. Zhuowen's perception was indeed terrifying. Just one life and death battle had allowed him to comprehend so many things. Even his spear intent was constantly improving due to his perception. Perhaps before daybreak, this kid will be able to achieve great enlightenment and push his spear intent to the limit, and he might be able to directly reach the peak of perfection from the entry level. As he muttered to himself, the anticipation in Xiao He's eyes grew even more intense. He clearly knew that if Zhuowen's spear intent really made a breakthrough, his strength would most likely increase by several folds. Stepping on the void, the spear danced like the wind, graceful like a swan, imposing like a rainbow. Time slowly flowed by. The darkness in the sky gradually descended, and a trace of white began to appear. Wisps of dim yellow light gradually spread out from under the dome. Rumble. At this time, Zhuowen was still in a state of selflessness. He suddenly swung his bone spear, and instantly, a terrifying force of heaven and earth accompanied Zhuowen's spear intent as he flung it out. Immediately, a huge chasm that was hundreds of meters wide appeared where the tip of the spear pointed. Countless spaces collapsed and shattered, as if a hole had been torn open in the sky. What a terrifying spear intent! Did this brat succeed in his breakthrough? On the roof, Xiao He's eyes flickered as a trace of pleasant surprise appeared on his face. With a swing of his spear, he directly created a huge chasm that was hundreds of meters wide in the void. Only a spear intent that had reached the peak of perfection could accomplish this. Without a doubt, Zhuowen's spear intent had made a breakthrough. Someone's coming. Looks like this dragon lord can't stay any longer. The instant the huge chasm appeared in the void, Xiao He clearly sensed that many of the practitioners in the intoxicated spring pavilion had been awakened by the commotion caused by Zhuowen, and they all rushed over. Immediately, Xiao He did not hesitate. He turned into a black flash and with a swoosh, entered the depths of Zhuowen's forehead. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Figures flew out from the intoxicated spring pavilion one after another. Most of these figures were practitioners who lived in the intoxicated spring pavilion, and there were also geniuses from the 8 great counties. At this moment, after they came out, they were shocked to discover that a huge chasm that was hundreds of meters wide had unknowingly appeared in the sky above the intoxicated spring pavilion. Countless spaces around the chasm had collapsed, making it look exceptionally terrifying. What a terrifying attack! Could this huge chasm have been created by that person? Looking past the chasm, everyone's gazes landed on a figure that was quietly hovering in the air not far from the chasm. This person was quite young, and held a bone spear in his hand. Densely packed blue spear shadows continuously surrounded his body. At this moment, Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian had also brought the geniuses from the Muqin County out of the intoxicated spring pavilion. They had also been attracted by the strange phenomenon that had occurred earlier. What a terrifying power! Could this huge chasm have been created by Zhuowen? Standing beside Lu Nantian, Lvetao also noticed the huge chasm that had suddenly appeared in the sky, and shock was revealed in his eyes. Above, the chasm that was hundreds of meters wide had turned into a vacuum zone, and its destructive power was extremely terrifying. What a powerful spear intent! Zhuowen's spear intent has made another breakthrough. I'm afraid that it has already reached the greater perfection realm. Lu Hantian's eyes were far sharper than Lu Nantian and the rest. With a glance, he could see the difference in Zhuowen. At this moment, the aura on Zhuowen's body was even sharper and colder than before. Especially around Zhuowen's body, the countless blue spear shadows were actually slowly condensing, turning into thumb-sized blue crystals. It should be known that if Zhuowen transformed into 3 heads and 6 arms, he could unleash 6 times the power of spear intent. If he transformed into 4 heads and 8 arms, he could unleash 8 times the power of spear intent. Zhuowen was confident that if he transformed into 4 heads and 8 arms, coupled with the spear intent of all 8 spears, he could even fight against a late-stage Xuanzuan realm expert. Looking at the gradually gathering crowd below, Zhuowen frowned slightly. He took a step and came to the side of Lu Hantian and the others. He saw Lu Hantian greeting him with a smile. Zhuowen, your spear intent has reached the pinnacle. This time's conferred marquee battle belongs to none other than you. Lu Hantian stared at Zhuowen with a burning gaze. That's not necessarily true. After all, the top 5 people this time are all extraordinary. Zhuowen did not become complacent because of his breakthrough, which made Lu Hantian nod his head continuously. Zhuowen was neither arrogant nor discouraged. In Lu Hantian's view, Zhuowen's temperament was the best. It was no wonder that Zhuowen could break through so quickly. After all, sometimes the improvement of cultivation not only depended on one's comprehension, but also one's state of mind. If one's state of mind was not good, it would be extremely difficult to break through to the next realm if a heart demon appeared. Let's enter the Imperial City. The conferred marquee battle is about to begin. Lu Hantian nodded. After saying that, he led Zhuowen into the Imperial City. In the courtyard of the Grand Residence, a pillar of qi that rose into the sky slowly dissipated. Then, Grand Lily, who was in the middle of the qi pillar, slowly opened her eyes. Boom! A vast aura burst out from Grand Lily's delicate body. As she raised her hand, she was actually able to emit an extremely frightening aura. After a night of comprehension, my cultivation has risen to the half-step to the Xuanzuan realm. The mystic enlightening realm is indeed amazing. Feeling that her body was filled with surging energy, Grand Lily's delicate face revealed a trace of surprise. After a night of comprehension, she had risen from the late ultimate Nine-Will Emperor realm to the half-step to the Xuanzuan realm. Her cultivation was now the same as Zhuowen's. Father, give me the near-distance mirror. In this conferred marquee battle, I will let Zhuowen see the strength of the Grand Family. I will also let him know that the Grand Family is not to be trifled with. Grand Lily tilted her head slightly and her beautiful eyes fell on Grand Haohai, who was standing at the side of the courtyard. Great! Lily, your comprehension is indeed terrifying. You have entered the mystic enlightening realm under such circumstances. You may not lose this battle. As he spoke, Grand Haohai waved his right hand and a ray of light shot out from the spiritual ring on his finger and floated in front of Grand Lily. This was an ordinary mirror. Its appearance was not eye-catching. If one did not look at it carefully, one would not even be able to detect the subtle fluctuations of the spiritual treasure in the mirror. I may not lose this battle, but I will definitely win. With the near-distance mirror, Zhuowen has no advantage. It is basically impossible for him to defeat me. With a wave of her hand, Grand Lily kept the near-distance mirror in her arms. Her beautiful eyes were filled with pride. Chapter 766. A load of nonsense. Early in the morning, a huge crowd surged into the Imperial City like a huge dragon. In front of the majestic throne room, the incomparably huge floating platform was still standing quietly without collapsing. Around the square, a dense crowd had already gathered. Everyone's eyes were filled with anticipation. They all knew that today was the day of the duel of Marquis. After today's battle, 3 marquises would be selected. Furthermore, the Azure Emperor would personally confer them the title of Marquis. It was a supreme honor and status. The status of a Marquis was extremely high within the Imperial City. It was even much higher than that of the lords of the 8 great counties. They were revered by countless people. At this moment, Lu Hantian had already arrived at the square with Zhuowen. Of course, when Zhuowen entered the square, he naturally attracted the attention of countless people. Numerous burning gazes focused on him, causing Zhuowen to feel uncomfortable all over. This person is Zhuowen. It's hard to imagine that a genius from another county could enter the top 5. This is the first time this has happened since the establishment of the Azure Emperor leaderboard. Have you heard about the assassination incident that happened last night? It's said that the Glan, Feng, and Chao families joined forces to assassinate this person. In the end, the outcome was shocking. This person single-handedly wiped out all the experts from the 3 great families. This time, the experts included 6 experts from the initial stage of the Xuanzuan realm. What? The experts from the Xuanzuan realm all died at the hands of this person. I heard that this person's cultivation is only at the ultimate 9th Will Emperor stage. How could he kill experts from the Xuanzuan realm? Isn't that too terrifying? Zhuo Wen's arrival attracted the attention of the most people. Whether it was Zhuo Wen's identity as a genius from the outer counties or the assassination attempt that shook the entire imperial capital last night, Zhuo Wen's name had already spread far and wide. Around the square, countless people's gazes gathered on Zhuo Wen. Some were shocked, some were puzzled, and most of all, doubtful. There was an insurmountable gap between a 9-Will Emperor and a cultivator from the Xuanzuan realm. Among all the geniuses in the Qing Xian Empire, only the first prince, Huangfu Wudao, and the mysterious Qing Yan could achieve this. Zhuo Wen hadn't been very famous at first, and he had even been a nobody before. However, such a person was as terrifying as Huangfu Wudao and Qing Yan, who had been able to kill people of the Xuanzuan realm. Such a shocking fact would naturally arouse the doubts of many martial artists. After all, Zhuo Wen was indeed a genius, but not to such an extent. Although the news of the 3 great families of the imperial city joining forces to kill Zhuo Wen had spread like wildfire last night, the imperial city was, after all, a very large place. The number of martial artists who were able to come to the intoxicated spring pavilion to watch the fight last night was, after all, a small minority. Most of the martial artists had only heard about it through hearsay. It was precisely because of hearsay that most of the martial artists held a skeptical attitude towards what had happened last night. With Zhuo Wen's keen perception, he could naturally sense that many of the gazes directed at him were filled with doubt and disbelief. Zhuo Wen couldn't be bothered with these gazes. An ultimate 9-Will Emperor had been able to kill a cultivator from the Xuanzuan realm. It was an extremely unbelievable thing in the first place. Zhuo Wen had been born with a humble background, and he hadn't been famous at first. It was only natural that he would be doubted by others. When the marquee battle began later, Zhuo Wen knew that these doubts would vanish like smoke in thin air. When Zhuo Wen arrived at the square, he immediately discovered that Qing Yan and Zhu Bai were already there. Qing Yan and Zhu Bai also noticed Zhuo Wen's arrival. Zhu Bai's expression was cold. He glanced at Zhuo Wen indifferently, and then ignored him. Qing Yan narrowed his eyes and stared coldly at Zhuo Wen. A sinister smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Zhuo Wen, I hope your luck is bad later and you draw me in the first round. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't have the chance to personally eliminate you. A cold voice rang out in Zhuo Wen's mind, causing Zhuo Wen to raise his eyebrows. He tilted his head and looked at Qing Yan, who was sneering at the corner of his mouth. It was Qing Yan who had sent him a voice transmission. On the contrary, if I draw you in the first round, it only proves that my luck is good enough. The one who will be eliminated will not be me, but you. Zhuo Wen's lips curled up as he also sent a voice transmission. Qing Yan snorted coldly and replied, You're quite confident. Unfortunately, when you meet me, I'm afraid you won't be so carefree. After saying that, Qing Yan stopped sending the voice transmission. Instead, he stood quietly in the middle of the square and stared mockingly at Zhuo Wen. He looked as if victory was already in his hands. Zhuo Wen could not be bothered with Qing Yan, who was overflowing with confidence. If it was before his breakthrough, Zhuo Wen might be afraid of Qing Yan. However, his cultivation was now on par with Qing Yan's. Moreover, his spear essence had reached the peak of perfection. To be honest, it would be extremely difficult for Qing Yan to defeat him, Zhuowen. The funny thing was that Qing Yan did not know that. He thought that Zhuowen's cultivation was still at the late stage of the Nine-Will Emperor realm. He did not take Zhuowen seriously at all. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air suddenly rang out. In the distance, two figures rushed over and arrived in the middle of the square in an instant. One of them was a beautiful woman in a dark green dress. The other was a dignified middle-aged man with an imposing appearance. The two of them were Grand Haohai and Grand Lily, who had rushed over from their residence. As soon as Grand Haohai landed in the middle of the square, his gaze was fixed on Zhuowen. A faint murderous intent leaked out from his body. Sensing the murderous intent from Grand Haohai, Zhuowen did not care at all. He said indifferently, "Patriarch Grand Haohai, don't forget the agreement between us. If my results in this conferred marquee battle surpasses Grand Lily, your Grand Haohai will accept my letter of divorce. If you still want to deny it, I, Zhuowen, don't mind revealing the marriage contract between your Grand Haohai clan and our Zhuo clan. I will also publicize some of your Grand Haohai clan's actions." Grand Haohai's gaze hardened. He was still staring at Zhuowen. He said in a low voice, "Do you really think that you have our Grand Haohai clan? I advise you not to be happy so early." Oh. Hearing Grand Haohai's meaningful words, Zhuowen frowned. He could not help but look at Grand Lily beside him. Kid. Grand Lily has made a breakthrough. She has also reached the level of a half-step Xuanzuan realm. In his mind, Xiao Hei's voice suddenly sounded, causing Zhuowen's pupils to shrink. He still remembered that Grand Lily's cultivation was similar to Zhuowen's 10 days ago. They were both at the advanced Ninth Will Emperor realm. However, in just 10 days, Grand Lily's cultivation had actually soared to the half-step Xuanzuan realm. Wasn't this speed too fast? Zhuowen was able to reach the half-step Xuanzuan realm in such a short time mainly because he had absorbed the blood essence of the 6 great Xuanzuan realm elders using the blood-sucking technique. Only then did he barely break through to the half-step Xuanzuan realm. Grand Lily did not have the blood-sucking technique. The sudden increase in her cultivation immediately filled Zhuowen's heart with doubts. Swoosh! Another sound pierced through the air. An incomparably domineering figure suddenly shot out from the throne room. A terrifying aura overflowed in all directions, as if countless blades were slashing at him. This domineering and emotionless figure was the first prince of the imperial family, Huangfu Wudao. Huangfu Wudao leaped out and instantly reached the top of the square, falling like a meteorite. Get lost! Zhuowen's eyelids twitched. The direction that Huangfu Wudao was falling in was exactly where he was. Moreover, Huangfu Wudao had no intention of slowing down. He was directly falling towards Zhuowen's head. With Huangfu Wudao's speed and the enormous aura that he emitted, if Zhuowen did not move aside, he would definitely have to take this attack head-on. Huangfu Wudao's sudden action immediately caused many people in the surroundings to be stunned. Soon after, mocking gazes shot towards Zhuowen. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Huangfu Wudao's action was obviously directed at him. Grand Lily and Qing Yan stared at this scene with mocking gazes. Although they were rather puzzled by Huangfu Wudao's sudden action, since it was directed at Zhuowen, they were naturally happy to watch the show. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. In the end, he did not intend to clash head-on with Huangfu Wudao. After all, Huangfu Wudao was already an expert of the Xuanzuan realm. Coupled with the 9-headed snake armor spirit, his strength was probably comparable to a sovereign stage expert. There was no need for Zhuowen to face such an expert before the start of the conferred marquee battle because there was no need to. Zhuowen stomped his foot and took a few steps back, leaving the place where he was just now. Rumble. Huangfu Wudao landed on the spot. His terrifying aura caused the surrounding ground to crack inch by inch, forming a crater that was several feet deep. Swoosh! Swoosh! The moment Huangfu Wudao landed, 5 invisible qi blades shot out from his body and shot towards Zhuo Wen. They reached him in the blink of an eye. Zhuo Wen's pupils constricted slightly as he gazed at the 5 blades of air that flew over. Huangfu Wudao's intentions were truly too obvious. Zhuo Wen wasn't an idiot, and he'd discerned with a single glance that the former was simply targeting him. With a flip of his right hand, a bone spear appeared in Zhuo Wen's hand. With a shake of his right hand, a blue spear shadow erupted and blasted against the 5 air blades. Bang! Suddenly, the 5 air blades and the blue spear shadow were in a deadlock in the air. Then, they suddenly exploded, completely annihilating the air blades and the spear shadow. Dang dang dang! Zhuo Wen took 3 steps back. His gaze became even more gloomy, and there were some doubts in his heart. Zhuo Wen and Huangfu Wudao had never dealt with each other before. It was really puzzling that Huangfu Wudao would target him like this today. Huangfu Wuji. Soon, Zhuo Wen guessed the other person. It was the second prince, Huangfu Wuji. After all, Huangfu Wuji was Huangfu Wudao's second brother. Although the two didn't have a good relationship, they were still related by blood. As for Zhuo Wen, he had forcefully eliminated Huangfu Wuji in the top 5. This naturally caused Huangfu Wuji to feel as if he had lost all face. Thus, the current scene had occurred. You're a lowly person, but you do have some strength. Unfortunately, is a lowly commoner like you really qualified to participate in the conferred marquee battle? Countless clouds of dust swept away, revealing Huangfu Wudao's domineering and cold face. His cruel eyes stared indifferently at Zhuo Wen, while his face was filled with an arrogant expression. What a joke, what a bunch of nonsense. This marquee battle is presided over by Emperor Qing. As the first prince of the imperial family, you openly look down on the marquee battle. Do you not put Emperor Qing in your eyes? If Emperor Qing hadn't appeared in time, you would have been a corpse by now. Huangfu Wudao stared coldly at Zhuo Wen. He took a step forward and flashed above Emperor Qing. With a wave of his right hand, he took out one of the bamboo sticks. Huangfu Wudao's words caused Zhuo Wen's gaze to become even colder. Huangfu Wudao was really too unreasonable. He actually wanted to kill him from the beginning. It seemed that he really had to be on guard against Huangfu Wudao in this marquee battle. Hee. You're really a little bastard who can cause trouble. Even Huangfu Wudao wants to kill you. How unlikable are you? Qing Yan, who was nearby, couldn't help but laugh loudly when he saw Zhuo Wen in a slightly sorry state. Shut up. You're just a cowardly rat. Why didn't you say anything when Huangfu Wudao was here earlier? Now that he's gone, you're laughing the happiest. What an ugly face. Zhuo Wen stared at Qing Yan. His voice was as cold as the winter, causing Qing Yan's expression to freeze. Humph. Don't let me meet you in the arena. Otherwise, I'll let you know what regret is. Qing Yan said coldly. Then, he leaped up and drew a bamboo stick from the air. Glen Lily didn't say anything. He only glanced coldly at Zhuo Wen and calmly drew one of the remaining 3 bamboo sticks. Looking at Glen Lily, who was as calm as water from the beginning, Zhuo Wen frowned slightly. Glen Haohai should be very clear about Zhuo Wen's strength. Although Glen Lily's cultivation had risen to the half-step Xuanzuan realm for some reason, it wouldn't be easy for him to defeat Zhuo Wen. The chances of him losing would be even higher. However, Glen Lily was extremely calm. It was so calm that it was terrifying. It was as if he didn't put Zhuo Wen in his eyes. Gran Lily's behavior made Zhuo Wen even more suspicious. Could it be that Gran Lily had some kind of unknown trump card on her? After Zhu Bai drew his stick, the last remaining bamboo stick was obtained by Zhuo Wen. With a flip of his right hand, the number 2 was written on the bamboo stick. Who drew an empty stick? Emperor Qing suddenly asked. Huangfu Wudao, who was standing at the front of the 5 people, suddenly stood up. He waved his right hand and the bamboo stick in his hand appeared before Emperor Qing. He said, "Wudao's luck is pretty good. I drew an empty stick." The bamboo stick that appeared before Emperor Qing was empty. There wasn't even a single word on it. Emperor Qing nodded and said, "Since you've drawn an empty stick, go and rest first." Huangfu Wudao cupped his hands and walked to an empty space below. He sat down cross-legged and began to meditate. He had no intention of watching the battle of the other 4 people. Huangfu Wudao's actions were no doubt looking down on the other 4 geniuses. However, he had the right to do so. Among the 5 geniuses, Huangfu Wudao's strength was the most outstanding. His cultivation had even reached the Xuanzuan realm, which was something that the other 4 geniuses could only look up to. With Huangfu Wudao's cultivation and strength, there was indeed no need for him to waste his time watching the battles of the other 4 geniuses. Humph! How arrogant! Huangfu Wudao's actions more or less caused the other 4 geniuses to be displeased. Qing Yan even let out a low harumph and mumbled. Even though the 4 geniuses were displeased, they couldn't do anything to Huangfu Wudao. Huangfu Wudao did have the right to be arrogant. The words on the bamboo stick are numbers, 1 and 2. The 2 who drew number 1 will fight first. Emperor Qing glanced at the 4 geniuses and said in a clear voice. As soon as the Azure Emperor said this, Grand Lily and Zhu Bai slowly walked out. Their gazes met, and a terrifying battle intent burst forth from them. "Get on the ring and begin the battle." Emperor Qing waved his hand, causing Glen Lily and Zhu Bai to leap onto the ring and face each other. Meanwhile, Qing Yan's gaze was fixed on Zhuowen's figure as he said with a sinister grin, "My luck isn't bad, hee." "Idiot." Zhuowen ignored Qing Yan's words. His gaze was fixed on Glen Lily's figure on the ring. He had a feeling that Glen Lily was a little strange, but he had no idea why. Seeing that Zhuowen was ignoring him, Qing Yan's eyes narrowed as he coldly snorted. However, he secretly made up his mind in his heart. He would definitely cripple Zhuowen once he ascended the arena. "Zhu Bai. You're no match against me. It's more reasonable for you to forfeit," Glen Lily said with a cold expression. Glen Lily, aren't you being too full of yourself? My cultivation has reached the intermediate stage of the 9-wheel Ultimate Dominator realm. You're only at the late-stage Ultimate Dominator realm. The difference between us isn't that huge, and you're asking me to forfeit? Zhu Bai's eyes squinted as he stared at Glen Lily. A cold light flickered in his eyes, and his voice was filled with a gloomy expression. Glen Lily was being too full of herself. She actually asked him, Zhu Bai, to forfeit. It was truly laughable to the extreme. "Since you're not forfeiting, then don't blame me." Glen Lily's beautiful face was filled with anger as she grunted delicately. She took a step forward and gracefully flashed into the sky like a fluttering butterfly. She stroked her waist and a soft whip appeared in her hand. Swoosh! The sound of the air being torn apart resounded as the soft whip flashed towards Zhu Bai like a spirit snake. Its speed had risen to the extreme. "You want me, Zhu Bai, to forfeit with such little ability? Glen Lily, aren't your arrogant words a little too early?" A trace of disdain appeared in Zhu Bai's eyes as he gazed at the ordinary soft whip that flashed over. He took a step forward, causing countless shadows to spread out from his surroundings and flashed towards the soft whip. Crack! A clear sound resounded. Zhu Bai's pupils constricted as he noticed that Glen Lily's snake-like soft whip seemed to pass through flowers and trees as it smashed onto the countless shadows. Following that, Zhu Bai's attack was like paper that directly collapsed inch by inch and shattered into countless pieces. Whoosh! Once the shadows were broken, the soft whip instantly arrived in front of Zhu Bai like a flower threaded through a fuse. It heavily struck Zhu Bai's chest before he could even react. Pfft! Zhu Bai spat out a mouthful of blood, and before he could even react, his entire body flew backwards with a wisp of blood. Zhu Bai had been cleanly defeated by Glen Lily in a single move just like that. The surrounding crowd was stunned. When did Glen Lily's strength become so terrifying? Zhu Bai was ranked third on the previous Azure Emperor leaderboard after all, but he had been eliminated by Glen Lily in a single move. Below the stage, Zhuowen and Qing Yan narrowed their eyes at the same time. When Glen Lily had used the soft whip just now, the aura on her body had been extremely powerful, far surpassing that of an ultimate ninth will emperor. This girl's cultivation has really reached the half-step Xuanzuan realm, as Xiao He said. When Glen Lily had entered the square, Xiao He had reminded Zhuowen that Glen Lily's cultivation had broken through to the half-step Xuanzuan realm. Zhuowen had not believed it at first, but now it seemed that Xiao He was right. Glen Lily was indeed a half-step Xuanzuan realm cultivator. Qing Yan lowered her head and muttered to herself. Her eyes flickered. Clearly, she had sensed Glen Lily's true cultivation when she had attacked just now. Glen Lily wins and enters the top 3. The Azure Emperor nodded in satisfaction. He had naturally seen Glen Lily's cultivation clearly. A half-step Xuanzuan realm cultivator was actually not weak. Glen Haohai, who was standing not far from the Azure Emperor, immediately revealed a smile. His eyes were filled with pride. He knew that Glen Lily's advancement meant that Glen Lily had the qualifications to be conferred the title of Marquis. Next battle, Zhuowen against Qing Yan. Both of you quickly come up. Chapter 768. Qing Yan vs. Zhuowen. Qing Yan's lips curled into a sinister smile. With a stomp of his foot, he leaped onto the arena and looked down at Zhuowen. His expression was cold and filled with murderous intent. Zhuowen's expression was cold as he looked at Qing Yan, who was high up in the arena. With a stomp of his foot, he leaped onto the arena and stared back at Qing Yan without any fear. I thought you wouldn't have the courage to come up. Now it seems that you do have some guts. Qing Yan spoke indifferently, but his gaze became even sharper. A surging aura burst out from his body. His clothes fluttered, and the eerie green dragon mask emitted a cold light. What a terrifying aura! Qing Yan's aura has far surpassed the peak of the ultimate nine-will emperor realm. I'm afraid he's half a step into the Xuanzuan realm. What a terrifying monster! The moment Qing Yan's aura burst out, some of the sharp-eyed warriors in the square could see Qing Yan's true cultivation level at a glance. They could not help but exclaim in surprise. It was this exclamation that immediately stirred up the emotions of many warriors around. They finally knew how powerful Qing Yan was. It was extremely rare to see someone half a step into the Xuanzuan realm at such a young age. After all, he was only one step away from advancing to Mystique Venerable rank. I'm afraid that Zhuowen is in for a bad time. That's right. I heard that Zhuowen's cultivation level rose rapidly after he refined the Green Dragon Qi. He went from the peak of the Ultimate Nine-Will Emperor realm to the peak of the Ultimate Nine-Will Emperor realm. He's also a monster. It's a pity that there's an insurmountable gap between him and someone half a step into the Xuanzuan realm. Looking at Qing Yan's surging aura, the crowd then looked at Zhuowen on the other side of the arena. They all shook their heads and sighed. The peak of the ultimate nine-will emperor realm was indeed powerful. However, in their opinion, Zhuowen had no chance of winning against Qing Yan, who was half a step into the Xuanzuan realm. Qing Yan felt extremely pleased when he sensed the countless respectful gazes around the square and heard some discussions. He raised his head high and looked askance at Zhuowen. His arrogant voice slowly sounded. Looks like a lot of people don't think highly of you. But don't worry, I'll give you some face. I won't finish you in one move and eliminate you in 3 moves. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed when he heard this. It seemed like Qing Yan was confident in defeating him. He was actually arrogant enough to say that he could finish him off in 3 moves. It seemed like he really didn't put Zhuowen in his eyes. Of course, since your strength is so much weaker than mine, I'll let you make a move first. Make the first move. Qing Yan stood proudly and continued. As expected of one of the two peerless heroes of the Azure Dragon Sub-Palace Hall. This Qing Yan is really elegant. He actually wants to let Zhuowen make a move first. That Zhuowen only has this one chance. If Qing Yan makes a move, I'm afraid he will be defeated before he can even make a move. There was an uproar in the surroundings. Everyone was basically praising Qing Yan for letting go of this move. Everyone was basically not optimistic about Zhuowen. You're giving me a handicap? Zhuowen asked with a strange look in his eyes. What? Do you think one move is too little? If you think it's too little, then I'll let you make 3 moves first. At that time, when you lose, you will also lose wholeheartedly. Qing Yan grinned, his eyes full of mockery. Once these words were said, the surrounding people once again set off a frenzy of discussion. They praised Qing Yan for his courage. He actually wanted to let Zhuowen make 3 moves first. Zhuowen sneered again and again. This Qing Yan was really good at pretending. He actually showed his elegance in front of him. Of course, since Qing Yan wanted to let Zhuowen make 1 move first, there was no reason for Zhuowen not to accept it. Since you want to let me make 1 move first, then I, Zhuowen, will gladly accept it. Stepping out, Zhuowen flicked his finger. Suddenly, countless sword lights swept out from the spiritual ring and formed a huge sword array in front of him. It was the ultimate sword array. A 5th grade origin array. This boy is actually a 5th grade arcana master. Looking at the sudden appearance of the ultimate sword array in front of Zhuowen, Qing Yan's eyelids trembled and the corners of his mouth twitched. However, he didn't show too much of a loss of self-control. Zhuowen was a 5th grade arcana master. Zhuowen had already exposed this fact when he fought with Huangfu Wuji. Qing Yan was very confident. So what if Zhuowen used a 5th grade spiritual force? To him, that was simply not enough. This idiot. Glen Lily, who was standing not too far away from the high platform, couldn't help but whisper when she saw Qing Yan's bold words. He wanted to let Zhuowen make 1 move first. Perhaps Qing Yan still didn't know that Zhuowen's true cultivation was almost the same as hers. They had both reached the half-step Xuanzun realm. In addition to the mysterious power of concepts, his strength was not any weaker than Qing Yan's. Now that Qing Yan was so careless, she feared that he would suffer a great loss. This was also the reason why Glen Lily couldn't help but curse. Ultimate Sword Array, Heaven's Bane. A cold voice slowly came out from Zhuowen's mouth. The mocking smile on Zhuowen's face became even more intense. Since Qing Yan was willing to be his living target, how could Zhuowen be polite? Rumble. Countless sword lights burst out from the sword array. The endless sword lights gathered above the void and finally formed an oval-shaped dome. This dome was completely composed of sword lights. When the Heaven's Bane was used, the heavens fell and the earth cracked. Looking at the huge dome that instantly condensed in the sky, Qing Yan's face changed. The power of the Heaven's Bane that Zhuowen used was somewhat beyond his expectations. Rumble. The dome was as fast as thunder. It instantly cut through the void and fell towards Qing Yan. The surrounding space was shattered into pieces under the huge pressure of the dome. Green Dragon Secret Art. With a cold snort, Qing Yan's gaze was grave as he formed a dragon-shaped seal with both of his hands. Instantly, countless cyan-colored chi burst out from his body and transformed into a terrifying gigantic azure dragon's shadow above his head. Swoosh! The dome was simply too huge. In an instant, it fell down like a small world, sealing and trapping the space around the green eye. In an instant, Qing Yan's figure was submerged in countless sword lights. The surrounding people could not see what was happening to Qing Yan within the sword lights. The heaven's bane that this little bastard used is much stronger than the yin-yang style that he used to deal with Huangfu Wuji. Looking at the huge dome of sword lights in the arena, Grand Lily's beautiful eyes narrowed. There was a trace of emotion in her heart. It seemed that besides Zhuowen's cultivation, his mental energy could not be underestimated. Break! 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 A loud shout suddenly resounded from the sword light in the dome, followed by a series of rather ear-piercing explosions. As Qing Yan continued to shout, the dome of sword lights began to violently tremble, faintly showing signs of collapsing. Kacha! Finally, a crisp sound rang out. The surrounding people saw that on the surface of the dome of sword lights, traces of cracks had appeared. Then, these cracks began to expand and finally collapsed. Rumble. Qing Yan suddenly took a step forward. His expression was gloomy, and the huge azure dragon phantom behind him seemed rather dim at this moment. Zhuowen, you little bastard, you deserve to die. Qing Yan angrily shouted. He had been too careless this time. This Zhuowen's mental energy was actually so terrifying. Moreover, he had actually said that he would let him have a move, causing him to be in an extremely passive position. This is the consequence of being arrogant. Qing Yan, do you really think that you have the qualifications to let me have a move? Do you really think that you can eliminate me in 3 moves? An indifferent voice suddenly sounded beside Qing Yan's ear. Immediately, a densely cold glint rushed out and directly flew towards Qing Yan, causing Qing Yan's pupils to shrink slightly. With a loud shout, Qing Yan waved his right hand. Under the effect of the azure dragon's secret art, the surface of his right hand was covered with cold azure dragon scales, as if it was a real dragon claw. Clang! The cold light swept past and instantly collided with Qing Yan's dragon claw. A crisp ringing sound rang out. Qing Yan only felt a huge force, and his entire body was forced to retreat. At this moment, Zhuowen was holding the bone spear in his hand, staring mockingly at Qing Yan. The bone spear in his hand did not slow down, and once again swept towards Qing Yan. Damn it! Qing Yan angrily shouted. His arms turned into 2 huge azure dragon claws, and swept towards Zhuowen at an extremely fast speed. Bang bang bang. Immediately, the 2 of them clashed. Countless sparks flew out from between the 2 of them, and crisp clanging sounds continuously rang out, sounding crisp and pleasing to the ears in the arena. The people around the square were shocked to discover that they had originally thought that Qing Yan would definitely have an overwhelming advantage in the battle between the 2 of them. But now, the 2 of them were on par with each other in their battle. This Zhuowen is not at the advanced 9 Wills Emperor stage, but he is already half a step into the Xuanzuan realm. The more Qing Yan fought, the more shocked he became. He had originally thought that he would definitely have the upper hand against Zhuowen, but now he realized that he did not have the slightest advantage against Zhuowen. Instead, he was faintly being suppressed. How is this possible? Break it for me! Qing Yan shouted. His hands formed into claws, and a dazzling green light swept out. It was dazzling, and then it turned into countless green claw shadows in front of him. 10,000 claws gouging heart. Rumble. Countless claw shadows covered the sky, and wildly bombarded Zhuowen, causing the surrounding space to completely collapse. Zhuowen was awe-inspiring and fearless. He stood with the spear in his hand, and the bone spear in his hand trembled. Countless spear shadows swept out, and turned into a blue spear shadow domain around his body. Humph. So what if you have advanced spear intent? Under my 10,000 claws gouging, you have no power to resist at all. Looking at the spear shadow domain around Zhuo Wen's body, Qing Yan was disdainful. The truth was just as he had thought. The spear intent that had reached a higher level was indeed unable to withstand a single blow under the 10,000 claws gouging heart, and was instantly broken. Zhuo Wen's eyes narrowed slightly. He waved the bone spear again, and countless spear shadows swept out again. At the same time, These blue spear shadows condensed into blue crystals, and waves of even more terrifying power concept surged out. If advanced spear intent is not enough, then what about peak spear intent? A cold voice rang in Qing Yan's ears once again. He only heard the sound of something breaking through the air. A bone spear accompanied by countless blue crystals blocked the countless claw shadows with irresistible force. Crack! The azure dragon phantom couldn't receive the support of his strength, so it naturally dissipated quickly. Now he was at the end of his rope. Zhuowen! You're really despicable. I wasn't even prepared, yet you made a move. Truly too shameless. Qing Yan's expression was unsightly as he shouted out angrily. As soon as Qing Yan said that, Zhuowen raised his eyebrows. This Qing Yan was really lying through his teeth. Didn't he just say that he would let Zhuowen make a move? Now that he saw that Zhuowen wasn't weak, he was saying that Zhuowen was despicable. With a flick of the bone spear, Zhuowen directly lifted Qing Yan into the air. Then, Zhuowen ruthlessly threw Qing Yan to the ground. With a loud bang, Qing Yan was thrown to the ground like trash by Zhuowen. The surface of the arena almost cracked open. Cough, cough, cough. Qing Yan couldn't help but cough repeatedly. His waist arched like a cooked lobster as he constantly struggled and swayed. A mouthful of blood spurted out, and his aura was extremely weak. Qing Yan, who was lying on the ground, glared at Zhuowen. Just as he was about to speak, a foot suddenly stepped on his face, causing him to swallow the words that he was about to spit out. Didn't you just say that you would let me make a move? I made a move and you couldn't take it. Now you're saying that I'm despicable. I really admire your brain. Stepping on Qing Yan's cheek, Zhuowen's eyes were indifferent. Damned guy. I'm going to kill you. Qing Yan shouted loudly. His right hand turned into a dragon claw and clawed at Zhuowen's foot. The Zhuowen in front of him was too hateful. He actually stepped on his face in front of everyone, trampling on his dignity. The shame in his heart almost drove Qing Yan crazy. A cold light flashed, and the bone spear accurately pierced Qing Yan's right hand. It directly pierced through and nailed Qing Yan to the arena, causing him to be unable to move at all. Looking at the arena, Qing Yan was directly stepped on by Zhuowen. Moreover, his right hand was nailed to the ground by the bone spear. Everyone's heart trembled violently. Originally, everyone thought that Qing Yan had a great advantage this time, and there was no doubt that he would defeat Zhuowen. However, the result now was beyond everyone's expectations. Not only did Qing Yan not defeat Zhuowen, but he was also defeated by Zhuowen in a few moves. Now, he was even being stepped on by Zhuowen, unable to move at all. Didn't you say that you would finish me in 3 moves? Why is it that the one being finished off now isn't me, Zhuowen, but you? Exerting force with his right foot, Qing Yan was almost face down, his face buried deep into the ground. Although Qing Yan kept struggling, he was completely powerless. He could only let out a whimper. Creak. Zhuowen. Qing Yan is still defeated. Do you still want to humiliate him? Quickly release Qing Yan. On the high platform, Aoki clenched his fist and said coldly. Looking at Aoki's ugly expression, Zhuowen's lips curled into a smile. He said, such a piece of trash actually dares to be arrogant in front of me. How laughable. Since Prince Aoki has spoken, I, Zhuowen, will give you face and return this piece of trash to you. In this competition, no one was allowed to take lives. This was the rule set by Emperor Qing. Therefore, Zhuowen naturally couldn't kill Qing Yan in front of everyone. He could only humiliate him and teach him a lesson. Bang! Lifting his right foot, Zhuowen heavily lifted Qing Yan's chest. The huge force caused Qing Yan's pupils to shrink. His waist bent like a shrimp, and he flew out of the arena. Humph! Aoki snorted coldly. With a wave of his sleeve, a powerful force swept out and caught Qing Yan in his hand. Looking at Qing Yan, who was almost unconscious in his arms, Aoki's face turned green and white. His eyes were almost spitting fire. The second round, Zhuowen wins. Emperor Qing stared at Zhuowen in astonishment. His eyes flickered, but he wasn't too surprised. Because of the assassination last night, Emperor Qing knew very well that Zhuowen's strength wasn't simple. It could even be said that he was very strong. Even if Qing Yan fought Zhuowen fair and square, he might not be a match for the latter. However, Qing Yan thought highly of himself. He actually said that he would let Zhuowen make a move first. Such an action was undoubtedly courting death. Therefore, Emperor Qing wasn't surprised at all when Qing Yan was defeated so easily. Wow! As soon as the Azure Emperor said that, a commotion broke out in the square. Everyone looked at Zhuowen with different expressions on their faces. No one expected that Qing Yan, who was half a step away from the Xuanzuan realm, would be defeated by Zhuowen so easily. It was really beyond everyone's expectations. With Zhuowen's victory, the top three in the Battle of Marquis Bestowment were completely decided. They were Zhuowen, Grand Lily, and Huangfu Wudao. The top three contestants were out of everyone's expectations. No one had any objections to Huangfu Wudao's selection. After all, Huangfu Wudao's strength was there for all to see. Regardless of whether he drew an empty lot or not, he would definitely advance. However, Zhuowen and Grand Lily's advancement was beyond everyone's expectations. The top three in the previous Battle of Marquis Bestowment were Huangfu Wudao, Murong Zhan, and Zhu Bai. There were many of them. Murong Zhan and Zhu Bai were eliminated. Only Huangfu Wudao remained unchanged. As for the mysterious Qing Yan, he had displayed great strength. Everyone thought that he would be able to advance smoothly. However, after Qing Yan was eliminated by Zhuowen, everyone's attention was basically focused on Zhuowen. This unknown genius from the outer prefecture had not only broken into the top 10 and top 5 of the Green Emperor list, but also entered the top 3 in the Battle of Marquis Bestowment. This battle record was simply too brilliant. I have said that the Battle of Marquis Bestowment will select 3 marquises. The 3 of you are in the top 3 of the Green Emperor list and have already reached the standard of a marquis. However, there are also 3 levels of marquises. They are Heaven, Earth, and Human. The Heaven Marquis is the highest, the Earth Marquis is second, and the Human Marquis is the lowest. However, even the lowest human marquis has a status comparable to the lord of a prefecture. He can be given a mansion of 100 miles and control 1,000 royal soldiers. The Earth Marquis can be given a mansion of 1,000 miles and control 10,000 royal soldiers. The Heaven Marquis can be given a mansion of 10,000 miles and control 100,000 royal soldiers. As soon as this was said, the crowd was in an uproar. No one had expected that the rewards for the 3 levels of marquises would be so generous. Most people were already extremely envious of the former's mansion, but controlling royal soldiers was enough to make them go crazy. The so-called royal soldiers were actually soldiers made up entirely of Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators. All of them were basically at the Ultimate Emperor Realm and above. They were truly elite troops. It was already extremely impressive for a human marquis to control 1,000 royal soldiers. However, the Earth Marquis and Heaven Marquis were even more terrifying. They controlled 10,000 royal soldiers and 100,000 royal soldiers respectively. The value of such a terrifying number of royal soldiers was actually not inferior to the price of nurturing 4 Supremacy Realm cultivators. The 3 of you are qualified to be marquises, but what level of marquis you will be given will depend on your abilities. With that, the Lotus Emperor waved his sleeve and 3 bamboo sticks appeared above his head. He continued, "The 3 of you come and draw lots. There is also an empty lot inside. Whoever draws it will depend on their luck. There is no need to draw lots. My next opponent is the Grand Lily. As soon as the Lotus Emperor finished speaking, Zhuowen stood on the arena with his spear in hand. He raised his bone spear and pointed it directly at the Grand Lily on the high platform, and his voice was like thunder that rumbled through the surroundings. As soon as these words were spoken, Huangfu Wudao, who originally had his eyes open, raised his brows, and then a trace of an imperceptible smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. The Lotus Emperor didn't speak, and he glanced indifferently at Zhuowen instead. He said, "It's best that there is no need to draw lots. If you want to choose your own opponent, then I won't object. However, your opponent must agree." Chapter 770. Mirror in close distance. Once Zhuowen's words came out, countless people's gazes immediately gathered on the tall platform, on the body of the Grand Lily. The news of Zhuowen's engagement with the Grand Lily had already spread throughout the imperial capital. However, it wasn't very widespread. But now, Zhuowen went up to the arena and personally said the marriage contract and the letter of divorce. Obviously, there was indeed a marriage contract between Zhuowen and the Grand Lily. Moreover, from what Zhuowen said, Zhuowen was planning to divorce Grand Lily. There is indeed an engagement between the Grand Lily and Zhuowen. Originally, I thought it was just a rumor, but now it seems like it's actually true. It's said that back then, the Grand Clan looked down on the Zhuo clan and went to annul the marriage. After that, the two clans decided on the Azure Emperor ranking competition. In other words, in the Azure Emperor ranking competition, if Zhuowen's results were better, the Grand Clan would accept the annulment. If not, Zhuowen would have to hand over the marriage certificate. I didn't expect the two families to have such an agreement. However, the Grand Clan's foresight isn't good. This Zhuowen's talent is so terrifying that he broke through all the obstacles and entered the top 3 of the Azure Emperor rankings. Such a genius should be more than enough to be the son-in-law of the Grand Clan. Sounds of discussion rang out around the square. In fact, many people were extremely puzzled in their hearts. Back then, the Grant family had actually personally gone to the Zhuo family to break off the engagement. After all, the talent that Zhuowen had displayed could be said to be monstrous. Such a genius was totally qualified to be the son-in-law of the Grant family. Hearing the discussions around him, Grand Haohai's expression gradually became gloomy. The gaze he used to stare at Zhuowen was filled with a dark and cold expression. Zhuowen's growth was too fast. It was so fast that even Grand Haohai hadn't expected that Zhuowen would reach his current level of achievement and enter the top 3 of the Azure Emperor rankings. Speaking of which, Grand Haohai actually regretted breaking off the engagement. If he had known that Zhuowen was so monstrous, it wouldn't have mattered if Zhuowen married into the Grand family. At that time, the Grand family would have one more powerful genius. However, it was useless to say anything now. The engagement had already been called off. Moreover, he, Grand Haohai, had joined forces with the Chao and Feng families to assassinate Zhuowen last night. The two sides had already formed a death grudge. They were like fire and water, and it was difficult to reconcile. What? Are you afraid to accept my, Zhuowen's, challenge? If you don't dare to do so, it means that your ranking on the Azure Emperor rankings will be lower than mine. In that case, quickly accept the letter of divorce. On the stage, Zhuowen's voice grew louder and louder, like the beating of a drum. It rolled around the stage and shook the eardrums of countless people. Grand Lily's beautiful eyes flickered and her expression darkened. Especially when she felt the doubtful gazes from all around her, it made it even more difficult for her to stop halfway. If she accepted the challenge, Zhuowen's strength was obvious. If she didn't accept the challenge, it meant that she admitted that she was inferior to Zhuowen. Then, she would have to accept the letter of divorce. In that case, the Grand family's reputation would be ruined. Who said that I don't dare to do so? Zhuowen, you're too confident. The outcome of the battle between you and me is unknown. Grand Lily snorted coldly. With a stomp of her feet, she instantly arrived on the stage. Her beautiful eyes were filled with cold light as she stared at Zhuowen. Did I say that I would definitely win? I only invited you to a battle. It's you who didn't dare to come up. What does this have to do with my confidence? Or is it that you're actually afraid? Zhuowen said indifferently. As soon as he said that, Grand Lily's face froze. Zhuowen was right. He didn't seem to say that he would definitely win. It was just Grand Lily who thought that he would. Grand Lily has the near-distance mirror. In addition to the cultivation of half-step to Xuanzun realm, she should be able to defeat Zhuowen in one fell swoop. On the high platform, Grand Haohai's eyes flickered. Although he couldn't see through Zhuowen, after experiencing the assassination last night, he had a rough idea of Zhuowen's strength. It should be comparable to a middle-stage martial artist in the Xuanzun realm. With the near-distance mirror, Grand Lily's true strength was probably higher than a middle-stage martial artist in the Xuanzun realm. This was also the reason why Grand Haohai had confidence in Grand Lily. The surrounding people were also looking forward to the battle. Everyone had witnessed Grand Lily's strength. She had defeated Zhu Bai, who was ranked 3rd on the Qing Emperor leaderboard, in one move. As for Zhuowen's strength, it was needless to say. Even Qing Yan had been defeated by him. Both of them were extremely powerful. Coincidentally, both of them were engaged. This battle was also the battle of the letter of divorce. Therefore, many people were looking forward to the outcome of the battle. They wanted to know who would win and who would lose. After all, no matter who lost, it wouldn't do any good to their reputation. Both of you can start the battle. Emperor Qing finally spoke. Boom! As soon as Emperor Qing spoke, 2 extremely terrifying auras burst out from both sides of the arena at the same time. They turned into 2 extremely terrifying pillars of qi that shot straight into the sky. For a moment, the countless clouds in the sky were disrupted, causing the sky to change color. What a terrifying aura! Both of them are half-stage martial artists in the Xuanzun realm. When the 2 people in the arena released their auras, countless people's pupils shrank slightly. However, they immediately became more excited. Since Zhuowen and Grand Lily had the same cultivation, the outcome of this battle would be suspenseful. The outcome of the battle would become more and more confusing. Standing beside Aoki, his face was bruised and his eyes were bruised. He looked at the 2 people releasing their auras in the arena. His face was a little ugly. Originally, he thought that since his cultivation had reached the half-stage martial artist in the Xuanzun realm 10 days ago, he would definitely be the first person after Huangfu Wudao. However, at that moment, Grand Lily and Zhuowen had the same cultivation as him. Moreover, he, Qing Yan, had been defeated by Zhuowen, who was not well known. Such humiliation almost made Qing Yan want to find a hole in the ground and hide in it. At the same time, Qing Yan's resentment towards Zhuowen grew. Kill! Zhuowen shouted loudly. His aura was like a rainbow. He took a step forward and instantly swept towards Grand Lily. Today, he would personally defeat Grand Lily and completely divorce this bitch. Grand Lily was not to be outdone. She waved her jade-like hand and the soft whip landed on her palm. Immediately, she danced and created countless whip shadows. They were like countless pythons as they attacked Zhuowen. Bang bang bang. Suddenly, the 2 of them collided. Zhuowen held the bone spear in his hand and his hair danced in the wind. On the other hand, Grand Lily held the soft whip in her hand and her beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Rumble. A ring-shaped aura burst out from between the 2 of them and spread out in all directions. Dang dang dang. Zhuowen and Grand Lily each took a few hundred steps back. Finally, they stopped at the edge of the ring and looked at each other solemnly. Zhuowen squinted his eyes and there was a trace of shock in his heart. The strength of Grand Lily was somewhat out of his expectations. Originally, he thought that Grand Lily's strength should be similar to Qing Yan's. However, after the fight earlier, he realized that Grand Lily's strength was actually much stronger than Qing Yan's. How can Grand Lily be so strong? Qing Yan also noticed the two figures on the stage that separated upon contact. This was especially so for Grand Baihe, who was evenly matched with Zhuo Wen. A strange expression finally appeared in Qing Yan's eyes. Qing Yan was very clear about how strong Zhuo Wen was. Even an ordinary half-step to Xuanzun realm martial artist wouldn't be able to withstand a few moves in Zhuo Wen's hands, let alone being evenly matched with him. I see. Grand Haohai has really put in a lot of effort. He even gave the near-distance mirror to Grand Lily. Suddenly, Aoki, who was beside Qing Yan, focused his gaze on Grand Lily and said in a low voice. Near-distance mirror. Qing Yan's pupils shrank and he looked at Grand Lily again. This time, he finally noticed that there was an ordinary mirror on Grand Lily's waist. If one didn't observe carefully, one wouldn't think that the mirror on Grand Lily's waist would be a heaven-ranked spiritual treasure. It's really the near-distance mirror. No wonder Grand Lily's strength has become so strong. Qing Yan muttered in a low voice. He understood the near-distance mirror quite well. The near-distance mirror was a heaven-ranked spiritual treasure and it was the clan treasure of the Grand family. It was said that the mirror had the effect of increasing a martial artist's fighting power by 70%. At the same time, it also had a strong defensive effect. No wonder Grand Lily was able to be evenly matched with Zhuo Wen. After all, Grand Lily's original body was half-step to Xuanzun realm. With the enhancement effect of the near-distance mirror, it was enough to increase his fighting power to Xuanzun realm. In addition to the terrifying defensive ability of the near-distance mirror, Grand Lily was now able to fight with a middle-stage Xuanzun realm martial artist. It's actually the near-distance mirror. No wonder Grand Lily is so confident. It turns out that the Grand family head even gave such a precious spiritual treasure to Grand Lily. Since Zhuo Wen is strong enough, I wonder if he can successfully defeat Grand Lily who has the near-distance mirror. Around them, some sharp-eyed people naturally noticed the mirror at Grand Lily's waist and recognized that it was the Grand family head's clan treasure, the near-distance mirror. It seems that the Grand family head attaches great importance to this battle. He even gave the near-distance mirror to Grand Lily. Emperor Qing looked at Grand Haohai with a faint smile. Your Highness is too serious. After all, this is the marquee battle and there are many strong people. I only hope that my daughter can obtain a high ranking and win glory for the Grand family. Of course, even if my daughter has the near-distance mirror, she basically has no chance of winning against His Highness the First Prince. However, it is more than enough to deal with some arrogant brat. When he spoke to this point, Grand Haohai's gaze intentionally looked towards the direction of the stage. Clearly, the so-called ignorant brat that he was talking about should be Zhuo Wen, who was on the stage. Grand Haohai, you'd better clean your mouth. Don't fart there all day. Even if your Grand Lily has the near-distance mirror, I'm afraid she's no match for Zhuo Wen. When the time comes, you'll have to accept Zhuo Wen's letter of divorce. Hee. Lu Hantian, who was standing not far away, crossed his arms and looked at Grand Haohai with disdain. However, the smile on his face became even wider. Chapter 771. Exchanging blows. Zhuo Wen's gaze hardened slightly as he noticed the ordinary-looking mirror on Grand Lily's waist. When he was exchanging blows with Grand Lily earlier, he clearly felt that Grand Lily's strength was far weaker than his. However, the mirror on Grand Lily's waist strangely emitted a white glow, causing Grand Lily's strength to instantly increase. Furthermore, Zhuo Wen also discovered that most of the power from the attacks he had landed on Grand Lily's body had turned into a wave of aftershocks that were absorbed by the mirror on her waist. Evidently, this mirror also had the ability to defend against attacks and absorb a portion of the attack's power. What a strange mirror. Zhuo Wen muttered softly as he stared at the close proximity mirror on Grand Lily's waist. Kid. The mirror on this little girl's body is not simple. It seems to be the Grand family's clan treasure, the close proximity mirror. It is a heaven-rank low-tier soul treasure. You have to be careful. Xiao Hei's voice suddenly rang out in his mind, causing Zhuowen's gaze to become increasingly solemn. He did not expect that Grand Lily would actually possess a heaven-rank soul treasure like the close proximity mirror. It seems like this close proximity mirror was given to Grand Lily by Grand Hao Hai. Recalling the confident expression on Grand Hao Hai's face, did Grand Hao Hai think that Grand Lily would be able to defeat him, Zhuowen, with the close proximity mirror? Zhuowen, this is our Grand family's clan treasure, the close proximity mirror. It is a heaven-rank soul treasure. No matter how strong you are, it is impossible for you to contend against a heaven-rank soul treasure. I feel that you should stop resisting stubbornly. Just forfeit and hand over the marriage certificate. Perhaps that way, you will not lose too badly. Seeing Zhuowen continuously retreat, the worry on Grand Lily's face slowly disappeared. Originally, she had thought that even with the close proximity mirror, she might not be a match for Zhuowen. But now, it seemed that she had worried too much. Now, the mirror of near at hand had only displayed a trace of its might, and Zhuowen was only evenly matched with her. If the mirror of near at hand completely released its might, she would be completely capable of crushing Zhuowen. You want me to forfeit and hand over the marriage certificate? Do you think you have the qualifications? Even with a heaven-ranked spirit treasure, you are unable to defeat me. Do you think a piece of trash like you is qualified? Zhuowen stood with his bone spear in hand. With a jerk of his bone spear, countless spear shadows immediately gushed out from his body, dyeing the area several dozen feet around him blue. Ci. Strange sounds were heard as blue crystals gradually appeared around Zhuowen, who was in the blue domain. These crystals were formed from the power of concept and possessed a terrifying power that was difficult to destroy. The bone spear shook once again, and a terrifying power of concept swept out and heavily hit the near mirror of Grand Lily. He knew that the reason why Grand Lily's power had increased so dramatically was all because of the near mirror. If he could shatter the close mirror, then Grand Lily would lose their only support. At that time, they would not be a match for Zhuowen. Buzz! The bone spear smashed onto the near mirror, and Zhuowen could only feel a huge force. A terrifying buzzing sound resounded in his ears, causing Zhuowen's pupils to shrink slightly. He continuously retreated, and a stream of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. The ignorant are really fearless. After all, the near mirror is a heavenly spiritual treasure, and it already has spirituality. This kid actually tried to break the near mirror in vain. He's simply overestimating himself. On the high platform, when Grand Hao Hai saw that Zhuowen had been repelled by the power of the near mirror, the corners of his mouth revealed a faint mocking smile. The trace of worry in his heart had also been put down. In his opinion, Grand Lily, who possessed the near mirror, had a power that far surpassed Zhuowen. The outcome of this battle would be revealed very soon. As expected of the Grand family's clan treasure. The near mirror is indeed terrifying. Not only can it greatly increase a warrior's fighting power, but even its defensive power is so strong. Zhuowen is quite unlucky. In terms of power, Zhuowen should be slightly stronger than Grand Lily. It's a pity that Grand Lily has a treasure like the near mirror. Having a heavenly spiritual treasure is also a kind of power. Winner takes all. Even if Grand Lily uses the near mirror to defeat Zhuowen, it's still a victory. Moreover, it's understandable. Looking at Zhuowen, who was at a disadvantage, the people around the square shook their heads. It seemed that Zhuowen was going to be defeated. After all, Grand Lily, who possessed the near mirror, was too powerful. Her defense was so terrifying that it was simply unbreakable. Humph. Zhuowen, since you're not giving up, I'll directly eliminate you. Looking at Zhuowen, who was continuously retreating, the coldness in Grand Lily's beautiful eyes became even more intense. The worry in the beginning had already vanished into thin air. Zhuowen, who was in front of her, was simply unable to threaten her in the slightest. Swoosh! Grand Lily leaped and directly arrived above Zhuowen. With a swing of her soft whip, it transformed into thousands of whip shadows and crushed towards Zhuowen. She wanted to use this attack to completely eliminate Zhuowen. Do you really think that you have the ability to eliminate me? All of a sudden, Zhuowen gave a strange smile. In an instant, he was enveloped by the thousands of whip shadows. The densely packed whip shadows were simply unable to see Zhuowen's figure clearly. Grand Lily also saw the strange smile on Zhuowen's face. Her long, shapely eyebrows knitted together as she felt a little strange in her heart. Deliberately mystifying. Shaking her head, Grand Lily's mouth was filled with a cold smile. She thought that Zhuowen was merely deliberately mystifying before his death, so she did not pay much attention to it. Swoosh! Landing slowly on the arena, Grand Lily no longer cared about the countless whip shadows in the void. Her beautiful eyes were fixed on Emperor Qing, who was on the high platform, as she slowly said, "Your Majesty Emperor Qing, you should be able to announce the result, right?" However, Emperor Qing shook his head and said with a faint smile, "The time has not yet come. Zhuowen has not been eliminated yet." As soon as he said this, Grand Lily's pupils shrank. She could not help but raise her head to look at the sky. Instantly, she saw that the thousands of whip shadows had actually started to distort at this moment. Rumble! A terrifying explosion suddenly resounded in the sky above the arena. A mushroom-like cloud of smoke gradually appeared and filled the surrounding sky. A golden light that was like a scorching sun burst out from the cloud of smoke. Furthermore, the crowd was shocked to discover that the golden light in the cloud of smoke was descending at a terrifying speed. Swoosh! A terrifying air-rending sound resounded in everyone's ears. It was like a knife cutting through the air, causing many people with low cultivation to cover their ears with their hands. Grand Lily's eyelids twitched. This was because she realized that the air-rending sound was descending in the direction of her corner. With a stomp of her foot, Grand Lily was like a nimble butterfly. In an instant, she retreated dozens of meters. The moment she retreated, the golden light finally landed on the arena. Rumble! The entire suspended platform shook violently and swayed in all directions. Moreover, what was even more terrifying was that the surface of the suspended platform actually started to spread out like a spider web. This was a phenomenon caused by a huge force. What a terrifying force! Could it be caused by that fellow, Zhuowen? Looking at the cracked ground under her feet, Grand Lily's pupils shrank. Her gaze immediately landed on the deep pit in front of her. She knew that the person in the deep pit should be Zhuowen. Swoosh! Another air-rending sound swept out. A tall figure with an endless amount of golden light swept out and arrived in front of Grand Lily in an instant. Only then did Grand Lily see the true appearance of the golden figure clearly. The figure in front of her had 3 heads and 6 arms. His entire body was filled with dazzling golden light, as if he was a god that descended from the sky. In the strong and thick arms, there were 6 long spears that were filled with flowing light. At that moment, the 6 long spears struck out together and swept towards Grand Lily. This is Zhuowen. Looking at the strange figure with 3 heads and 6 arms in front of her, Grand Lily was stunned for a moment. She could recognize that the face in the middle of the 3 heads was Zhuowen's face while the other 2 heads were Buddha's. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.